Okay. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. All right. Hello, everybody. Shalom to you. Peace, peace, peace. How you doing? I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour. Je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao. Namaste. Ohio. Usai Anakitawaya. Habari gani. Ni hao. Namaste. Um, Aquaba. Etesen. Jambo, mimi ni Kofi ninavaa kukutana na wewe. Shalom. Kwam yastel, tada yastel. Barak Allah Cham Yahava. Anain Kofi. Let Servants of Christ. Mashalam Khe. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. And today, after we just came out of yesterday talking about unholy, today we're going to talk about the devil should be in the details. And I appreciate y'all for being on Shalom Peace. The devil should be in the details. And please pray for me. It's been a little rough these last few days, dealing with some things, but we are ready to go. And we appreciate your presence today. We want to talk about the devil should be in the details. If it's your first time, one time of many, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on. Hello to everybody. How you doing, Sister Sonia, Sister Betty? Sister Rhea, Concrete Rose One, Charles Greer, excuse me. Sister Alions, Coco, Sheila Ross, TNTMY Company, I guess. Thanks for being on with us. I don't know if I said that correctly. Liberviator, Ladybug, Yashir, Downtown, Money Green. Let's see. Brother Vincent, King Wins, ZZZK. Is this K? I don't know. Sister Austria, how you doing? Sister Steven, everybody. I'm sorry I missed some of y'all. Sister Betty, etc. You got the Hoggy Sunshine, alrighty. Brother Taryn, Sister Nadine, Miss Pierce. To everybody, we appreciate you. If I missed your name, please forgive me. The KJV, thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate you. So it's we want to talk about today. The devil should be in the details, right? And this is kind of going. We talked about the whole unholy thing yesterday, right? And we don't admit to certain details, right? One of the things that gets omitted from details is the devil's presence in a lot of different things, or demonic presence, or disgusting things that happen, right? So the devil should be in the details, and that's something that we don't talk about a lot, is we miss details. Now, before we get too far deep into this today, before we have too much issue with today and people telling us what's wrong with this and that, how you doing, Sister Snet, right? Let's deal even with the word details. See, because a lot of people don't even know what detail is, right? So let's did I might not have gotten the definition for y'all. Okay, if you're on TikTok, hold on one second. I thought I had the definition ready to go. Hold on one second. I thought I had my stuff together. I guess I didn't. What is a military detail? Question mark. Oh, I know. Yeah, that's right. I was busy when I was supposed to take that. Okay. Hey, we got it though. My bad. All right. Praise God. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for the reminder. So, if we're gonna be honest about a detail, which a lot of us don't even necessarily know what a detail is. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? What is a detail? We only look at details from certain things that we don't think about, especially in the system you're in. If you're in a very militaristic system, then you got to look for details. What is a detail according to this system? When they say make sure you're into details, what do they say? Right? When somebody says we need the details, what are they talking about? You got to look at somebody else's culture. How you doing, Hurt 3802? So if a military organization assigns a detail, this is what they're doing. It is a military organization assigns a detail to perform specific task, mission, or operations. Those of us who've been in the military, we know what a detail is, right? How you doing? I'm Minister Strong. So the leadership identifies the need, picks the specific individuals that can fill it, and assigns a leader to oversee it. Then the detail moves out. So the devil is in the details. At least the devil should be in the details, but the devil's not in the details. There are things that you're moving out in, right? How you doing, Sister Shrees? How you doing, Snoop? How you doing, Sister Shima? Bakwatav to everybody, by the way. Barakallah Cham Yahaba. Once again, how you doing, Minister Shante? So the devil should be in the details. How you doing, Spike Me? How you doing, Yasanma? How you doing, Black Steel? The devil should be in the details, and yet details are being sent out with us not having any mindset of, the devil might be in this, right? There's a mindset that might be attached to this. There's some troubling things that we're still doing. Where did they come from? Right? We're trying to move forward and stuff, but we are omitting detail. It's sad, but it's true. Right? Now, I want to share something with you. There's something called the Devil's Punch Bowl. Some of you know about it, some of you don't. Some of you probably heard about it, but maybe not looked into it. But I'm going to just play something real quick to show you how the devil should be in the details, right? But he's not going to be. We're going to just listen to something together. And when you hear it, I'm going to let it just play without the details, because that's something that was done in where people live in this particular place in Mississippi called the Devil's Punch Bowl. And they put this on or not national, I guess, but on, local news. Right? They put this on local news for people to be able to go and listen to, right? Now, this is what they're going to tell you. Now they're not going to mention the devil that should be in the details. They're not going to mention this is what happened, this is what these people went through, blah blah. They're going to say, so those of you who know, I don't know if this is the one I'm looking for. I think it is. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think this is the one I'm looking for. So we're just going to listen together real quick on what they say the Devil's Punch Bowl is. All right. And how you doing, Sister Irena? Thanks for being on. And so as they tell us what the Devil's Punch Bowl is, I just want I just want you to listen, and then I'm going to tell you some of the details that are missing. Right? And you'll see how the devil should be in the details. And just like we were doing yesterday with the unholy thing, how everybody's arguing about everything and missing the big devil horns that are right in front of your face. Okay? So let's listen just to see what this news program that's in Mississippi, in the area, right, is going to tell you about the Devil's Punch Bowl. And then let's go back and look for the details that are missing. You ready? Here we go. So I don't know what's going on. There we go. So that was the guy explaining the Devil's Punch Bowl. Now, if you listen to what he said, he didn't say anything about why people actually call it the Devil's Punch Bowl. Right? He just gave you a bunch of stuff. And he didn't give you what? Some of the details. And the details that were omitted, the devil should be in those details. And how you doing, Mama? Right? That's not what the Devil's Punch Bowl is. He was, oh, well, you go out and it's nice. And how you doing, Billy Ray? And how you doing? I'm sorry, everybody who just came on. If I missed your name, please forgive me. Right? But if you just come on, if you just come through here, if you just look at it, it's a nice place and it's quiet. And what's surprising, you'll hear rumors. This is what he said. You'll hear rumors, old stories, old tales about, right? About the fact that maybe there were some pirates or things or people that were murdered here. But when you come here, you just sit here in this moment, in this place, right? And then he goes, it's private property, so it wouldn't be smart for you to come on here anyways. However, even if you are able to make it here, it's great to be able to just come on here with no preconceived notions and just listen to it. It's a time before everything was set up. That's what he was saying, right? What is the Devil's Punch Bowl? The Devil's Punch Bowl is a place to where people who were free, whether they were already freedmen or freed slaves at the time, were trying to leave and go up north, right? And Union, not Confederates, Union soldiers who didn't like the fact that these people had freedom. Because supposedly y'all think that's what everybody did, was they fought for freedom. Are they pausing it? Yeah, that's what they do, stuff like that. But we're going to get this out, right? They have it in their mind. They said, oh no, like this and that. But what they did is people who were walking to freedom, they captured them. And in 1 year, at least, because they don't tell you how many names and people there were, but at least 20,000 people were killed. How you doing, Minister Tamara? I'm going to steal one of your Facebook posts today, Minister Tamara. I didn't have a chance to ask you, so I'm not going to put it up. But one of the things you said about slavery and Christianity when it happened together, I'm just letting you know. I was waiting to see your name on here. I would steal your thing. Praise praise y'all. Right? That's my big sister. I can steal from her. But no, but I need you to recognize. I need you to recognize and realize, like, you're dealing with people who omit the details. And when you omit a lot of the details, the devil should be in the details. Thank you. The devil should be in the details. How you doing, Brother Alton? How you doing, Sister Monica? The devil should be in the details. Why did he not say anything about these people? By the way, I apologize. I didn't mean to actually share this one. Let me take this one down and go to something else. There are some worse pictures than others, so some of them I will wait to show you. That one wasn't bad. I made sure I didn't have anything terribly bad, even on accident, on here to show you. But I'll those of you who are on Patreon, I got to wait. Some things I can't post on social media, right? Hello, welcome to You're Not Banned Right Now. And if that's all you said was yesterday, then, please forgive us for a mistake. And love on us as we love on you with this information. But appreciate you, right? How you doing, Sister Rachel? So why did they not say that post-slavery in 1 year? See, people even say 20,000 freed slaves died, forced into concentration camps, but they'll never tell you it was in 1 year. By the way, here's another detail for you. So you got to know how this stuff works. Oh, you couldn't hear anything? Oh, I'm sorry. We had it on through the MacBook. You guys should have heard it. I'm sorry if you guys were on YouTube and you couldn't hear it. Long story short, the guy was trying his best to make sure he didn't address these things. But they don't tell you also, what these Union soldiers called these freedmen, supposed freedmen? You said your uncle was murdered by a black man. Where's your justice? If he murdered them, then you should go ahead and get justice. This isn't about black versus white. This is about wrong versus right. And I'm not even concerned about being right. I want to be righteous. So if you're so stuck in racism that you think that anything that has to deal with something that was wrong being identified is incorrect, then I'm praying for you. I hope that you get better in that. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I could care less about that, right? Something wrong was done to a group of people. If something wrong was done to your family member, you should get justice. See, and people will not even realize the narcissism and the narcissistic tendencies that they have to take you to a place that we shouldn't even necessarily go. See, long time ago, get over it, this and that or whatever. Sure, okay. Well, don't celebrate July 4th. See what happens? The devil's in the details. At least the devil should be in the details, but we don't want details. We just want to go ahead and celebrate as we see fit. We'll omit certain parts of history, right? Or of his story. His story omits your story, and then he comes along, or anybody that's in agreement with him comes along and says, "Hey, this is wrong," right? Don't mention that something bad could have happened. And moderators, I'm gonna need your help today again. You see, people want to talk about Black History Month, this and that. You said, okay, now what's your point here? My point is that the devil's in the details. See, yesterday we talked about something called unholy. The word holy means to be whole, one. The word unholy means to be split apart. And people were so messed up and mad about the fact that we were talking about being unholy when they didn't realize we should stop doing anything that divides us, including what you're doing now, to where I can't even explain what I really mean because you're so worried about me coming off as somebody who's trying to do some kind of reverse racism, as if that can even exist, because I didn't create racism. So if you're willing to listen, that's fine, but I'm not going to get into a banter too much, okay? Right? So that being said, what they called these people who were free, right? They called these people being free. They called them what? They called them contraband. Why would you call the people contraband? What does the word contraband mean? See, the devils should be in the details. So when I omit the details, I omit the demonic influence. Real talk, right? The devil should be in the details. If the devil's not going to be in the details, right? Let's just keep it a buck. Let's keep it 100. If we're going to erase the devil, what's the greatest trick of the devil? So they say the greatest trick of the devil is getting you to believe that he never existed. Isn't that what they say? I don't say that. That's what others tell me, right? We might not be able to do this as well as I'd like. Hopefully y'all can see me, okay? But you're right. If the greatest trick that was pulled is to get you to think he never existed, then the greatest trick that he pulled is to get you to omit details. You said my government fuels racism. It's not my government. I'm a non-citizen national, right? I don't care about where I'm from. I care about who I'm from, right? But yeah, I agree with you that they do fuel it. Guess what? They're ruled over by different people. What's the definition of capitalism? Capitalism is when politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. Trade industry is wielded by private corporations and not the state. According to the 13th Amendment, capitalism allows for chattel slavery as long as you get arrested. Now trying to figure out the people, not just Black people, but the people who are low on the totem pole who they try to arrest and make sure that they continue slavery and still put them on plantations to this day. You said, can you test my communist here? Once again, I'm a non-citizen national. But you know what? I'm in great company because you know who you call a communist to? And then I'll get back to what the point is. And I thank you guys for saying this. So you guys don't know, you help out my points. I appreciate you. I really do. Like, you guys think I'm joking when I say that. You guys call MLK a communist. The year he was killed and the year before he was killed, there was a census done, and you called him a communist. And he said our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So if he's a communist and you put me in company with such a great man as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., then I love communism. Obviously, I don't, because I don't live in it. I'm a non-citizen national. You are a debt slave and a chattel slave, and don't even realize it because you pay taxes because you deal with benefits and privileges from a false corporation. If you knew that you didn't have to participate in this system, you would stop trying to support it. That's the problem that you're having, right? That's the problem that you're having, right? That's the problem. And even once again, even when people say, "Where are you from?" Right? Like Peep Game, and I know what you mean, but I'm not getting on you for that. But look, even when like people, "Where are you from?" It doesn't matter where you're from. It matters who you're from. That's why you got the birth certificate you got. Now, listen long enough to catch what I'm saying. They say you're contraband. This is what they said about these people. They are contraband. What is the definition of contraband? The devil should be in the details, but when they erase the details, you don't know any better. So what is the definition of contraband? You said, I have a smartphone from a capitalist system. Anybody can pay for anything. Capitalism doesn't give me a smartphone. Do you know that I even got my phone from the United States corporation? You don't even know that. Anyways, right? Like, right? But even if we talk about that, right? Because okay, fine, your food is coming from capitalism and stuff, and making sure that people, right, your clothes that you wear, if you work at McDonald's or whatever, you're wearing something that somebody had to make. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you're from, it matters who you're from. Go look at your birth certificate. Does it right? It says where it was issued, but they're not concerned about where it was issued. They're saying who has ownership over you. Whoever has ownership over you is who they is who you belong to. But if those people are owned by a corporation, then you're owned by people that own a corporation. But thank you. Contraband is basically either you took it out the country illegally, you either um, stole it outright, or you didn't pay for it. For example, reparations was given to slave masters before it was given to slaves. Right? Reparations was given to slave masters before it was given to slaves. So why do you hate reparations? No, this is after 1863, right? So why do you hate the idea of reparations? What should we do now? Look, we got a whole bunch of stuff if you want to partner with us as far as that. If it's the whole thing is we're not solution oriented, but you can't have a solution without a problem, can you? So just hear me out. See what I'm saying? We're so busy separating ourselves, not making the main thing the main thing. How you doing, Mr. Bosco? We're not able to make the main thing the main thing. You said because I don't deserve money for pain. No, that's not how reparations work. There are still Japanese people who get reparations. There are still Jewish people that get reparations. Stop it. There's still slave masters' families that get reparations on the books. Stop. You don't know how this works. The reason why people aren't getting reparations, first of all, you don't qualify for it. If you want to be honest, this is better for your argument. If you want to just be a whole thing of I'm not going to give you anything, even though it's not yours to give. You are a slave to the same corporation. But if you want to go there, the reason why, well, once again, nobody will be asking you for anything. And by the way, you are a slave. Are you in debt? Do you pay taxes? If you pay taxes, by definition, you're a slave to the corporation. That's how it works. Nevertheless, right? You're getting so messed up in the black white. The reason you don't comprehend that they're called contraband because they are people who were never paid for, or not even people. They were non-people who were never paid for. Capitalism is dealing with a system in which politics and economics are used to control your trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by owners of corporations for profit rather than the state. That is the definition of capitalism. Right? You can't get reparations unless you're considered to be a people. That's why. See, the people who got reparations were considered to be a nation, a people. They were called freedmen. You said, I live a free life? Yeah, I do. I'm freer than you if you're a United States citizen. I mean, if you want to go there, yeah, like I'm definitely freer than you. I served the country, even though you won't even ask me, hey, did you serve? Did you do anything? Did you believe in it? Did you vote? Did you do this? Did you do that? Like I served your country. Yeah, I have property in the United States, but I'm not in the United States Corporation. I'm in the United States of America. My land is allodial. Is yours? You hear what I'm saying? How you doing, Brother Jermaine? So you're having a bad conversation. You're trying to talk to me as if we're the same. Now, we are both human, but there's no such thing as equality anyways. I don't need you to be equal to me, and I don't want to be equal to you. I'm not equal to my wife. She's not equal to me. We both are better in things. She's better in some things than I am. I'm better in some things than she is. You put us together. Oh, man, we work really well. There's no such thing as equality. You keep looking for equal rights, and you wanted that written into law. But the reality is you don't even know how to make sure somebody doesn't circumvent your equal rights. And the only way that they can circumvent your equal rights is if you really believe that equality thing means what you think it means by law. See, these people that were taken, they were taken as contraband. That means that they weren't people. So since they weren't people, these Union soldiers, they called them contraband because they didn't pay to take somebody's property. They stole it from them. There were no reparations given to the slave masters. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to get people to see, that we are all slaves now. And I apologize. There's so many comments coming in on different platforms if I can't really keep up with them, but I'm trying, right? But my goal is not to make sure that you guys believe every word that I say. If you studied, or if you know what sovereignty is, or if you know how law works, or if you know what common law is, maritime law, admiralty law, law of equity, substantive law, public law, private law, remedial law, procedural law, you would know what I'm talking about. Right? Like, if you knew what a human was by law, by Western law, Western definition of human, guess what they called it? They call you a monster by definition. I'm not making that up. I don't have to add to anything that they did. I'm just telling you what they did. Look in the law that you go by. To be a human is to be a monster. You should never go to court and call yourself a human. You should be a natural man or a natural woman. You don't know the difference, though, because you don't know how natural law works. You don't know the nature. See, you're so busy hearing me talk about this, not realizing that if they did it to a group of people before you, they'll do it to you too. The same government that you're caping up for. Even sovereignty is spirituality. That's what I tell people. You got to teach. When we teach sovereignty, you got to teach sovereignty from a place of spirituality. That's why you put your hand on the Bible. Sometimes even a slave Bible, and you don't know the difference. Right? You don't know the difference. You don't know. You think that the United States of America is a Christian nation. You show me in your Constitution where it's Christian. By the way, I'm not a Christian anyways, but show me in your Constitution where you are in a Christian nation. Show me in your Constitution where you live in a democracy. No, you are contraband unless somebody pays for you. That's why America is never in debt. They keep talking about they're about to hit the debt ceiling on it. That's a lie for you. How you only $31 trillion in debt if somebody keeps giving you money? You're not in debt. You're not in debt. You're not part of a debt unless you say you're part of a country that's in debt. How did slavery come about? How about this before we go there to try and make this work for you, which still you're not going to be honest about where Negroes started in Spain and in Portugal and then Negro land and who those people actually were. And you're not going to be honest about, or maybe you don't know about that in the 1700s going all the way back then to, when what do you call it? The Roman Catholic Church was doing the Inquisitions and stuff. You might not know about that, but how about this? Slavery in any way, shape, or form is terrible. How about that? We can easily stop where that's headed. We can easily just deal with that. Slavery in any form is bad, period. So this slavery that you're going to try to compare to some other slavery, all of it's bad. How about that? Now that we've done that, can we discuss what happened? See, you don't like details, but the devil's in the details. Now, once again, what is the definition of a detail? Because people want to keep talking about stuff without details. Here's how important details are. Military organizations assign a detail to perform specific tasks, missions, or operations. The leadership identifies the need, picks the specific individuals that can fill it, and assigns a leader to oversee it. Then the detail moves out. You keep trying to move out to attack something, and you don't know what you're talking about. Or you don't care about making sure that every detail is there, right? Detail leader, yeah. See, I'm in the military. I comprehend detail. I comprehend muster. I comprehend everything should be in place. I comprehend, are your ribbons here? Are your medals here? If you're wearing dress, you need to have your medals and your ribbons. If you're not wearing dress, if you're just wearing work stuff, you need to make sure that you have your ribbons and then everything else in place, right? You got to make sure every patch is in place. You got to make sure you have no IPs. Those of you who've been in the military, you know what IPs are, right? I still carry a lighter around for IPs. I don't really like IPs like that, right? Like see, it's in the details. If you've been in the detail, or if you've been in the organization long enough, you comprehend how the detail works. But see, you're sitting up here without any knowledge of how the detail works, trying to argue on behalf of something without a detail. You're trying to move out. You're trying to move out without a detail. Detail has to have organization to it. It has to have leadership, and you have to be willing to honor the details, not just keep saying, I'm gonna go past the detail to get to what I want. And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. Right. So if we're going to talk about, the devil should be in the details, but we keep getting outside of the details. The more we get outside of the detail, then the less organization we have. The less organization we have, the less conversation is in truth. The less truth there is, then the less culture is going to be represented. The less culture is represented, your beliefs will be messed up. The more beliefs you're messed up, guess what? The more your emotional attachment is messed up. And thank you for the love again. All right, Allah be praised. We said freedom in capitalism. Capitalist society always remains about the same as it was in Greek republics. Freedom for slave owners. And that's by Lenin. Now people are definitely gonna not like that. Oh, you're a communist. Y'all don't like truth, man. That was a great quote, by the way. Thank you. Y'all people don't like truth. Right? How about this? Because you think it's so bad. Have you ever, like when I do this right here, do you know who the Boer people are? How you doing, Brother Christopher? Right? Do you know who the Boer people are? It's a detail. Who are the Boer people? What does this look like, by the way? Is this not a concentration camp? Now, riddle me this. When did this actually take place? When did conversation take place? Who are these people? Who did this to these people? By the way, that's it from a certain angle of one of the camps, right? But there are a whole bunch of them. Who made a whole group of people live like this? I'm just asking, right? See, people want to talk about this stuff, but you have no detail. Who are the Boer people? Boer. Do you know? You said I enslaved them? Yeah, nice. We already talked about the slavery in any kind of way, shape, or form is messed up, right? Just like Irish Americans here, and a lot of y'all got an Irish American tone. And I've been around the Irish. I've talked to the Irish. I've been taught by the Irish, right? About especially knowing that the Irish and us are like this, whether it's my indigenous side, Choctaw, whether you're talking about what we had to do for each other on the Isle of Montserrat. Some of you don't even know it, but see, Irish people are with Martin Luther King Jr. when he said, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. When he said it is a cruel joke to tell a man to pull himself up by his bootstrap when he has no boot. Irish people can't stand when Irish Americans are busy over here telling you, hey, get over it, do this, do that, because we don't compare each other's oppression. And a lot of Irish people, especially Irish Americans, do not even recognize that you guys were willing to die and get put into breeding camps, and you became some of us, to where some of you carry our blood and some of us carry yours because we were treated the same by the same wicked slave master. Right? But you'll fight against your so-called cousin, your so-called comrade. We should at least be against the same person. But see, that's what comrades are. Remember, confidants are for you. Constituents are for what you are for, but comrades are against what you are against. You said there's no future in my mindset. There sure is. Right? If you'd like to be able to help us with stuff that we do to feed the community, educate, getting land, things like that, teaching people how to do it, then of course you can help us with that. But just because you can help us with things in the future doesn't mean that we're not going to learn from things in the past. Right? Stop celebrating July 4th and get back to me. Stop celebrating Memorial Day, which, by the way, wasn't created by you guys. Right? Stop celebrating December 6th, December 7th, Pearl Harbor, a day to live in infamy. Oh, some of y'all forgot about that because you knew Pearl Harbor is September 11th. Never forget. When you stop doing that, then I'll start making sure that I start talking about the future only, as if you can have a future based off of no past. Watch this. The language that we're speaking right now, whether we say, hello, how are you doing? Hola, mi nombre es, hola, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, ça va? Namaste, ni hao, aquaba, etc. Habari gani, jambo, mimi ni Kofi, ninafuraha kukutana na wewe, shalom, barakala cham yahava, bakwatav, right, etc., right? Whichever language we're speaking, all of it is based off of what came in the past. You only learn how you speak now and what you're going to teach your children in the future because you came out of a culture that declared to you that this is what was important for you to be able to make it through, right? So I'm not going to act like we're even going to have a conversation and deny that we're speaking something that we learned from the past. And thank you for the love, y'all. I appreciate that. How you doing, Minister Morel? See, we have this weird thing where we'll start omitting truths. See, in order for an untruth to stand, in order for cognitive dissonance to stand, we have to do what? Omit the details, but the devil is in the details. So somebody still, in all that argument that you're making, you still haven't told me, what is the Boer? Who are the Boer people? Excuse me. And what did the English do to them? Sorry about that. Right? What did the English do to the Boer? The same English that you only say Axis. I'm sorry, not they were against the Axis powers. They were the Allied powers. They were heroes. Well, before 1914 and before 1930s, in the 1900s, not hundreds of years ago. Matter of fact, you know that there are people who are alive from 1900 that were born in 1900. You know that, right? Like, so we're not talking about something that's so far away. You know that there are people whose parents, not grandparents, whose parents were obviously alive in 1900s. You know that. Technically, there's people because some of them had children really, really late in life. Technically, there are people who basically lived in like the Civil War, and their grandchildren are alive today. Right? You know that you can go on YouTube and you can listen. Right? You can go on YouTube and you can listen on wax to people who fought in the Civil War. There are people who were in the Civil War, who fought in the Civil War, who are on, we actually can look at them on television shows. You know that, right? Not pictures of them. I'm talking about while they were alive talking to you. Oh yeah, we get banned all the time. We have several channels, so we just bounce to the other one when they try to do that. Right? See, so the Boers who were coming against the British did what? They put them in concentration camps. Here's another thing you don't know, is that they also, even though supposedly it's not about color, they were like, these dark-skinned people did this to us. We're going to put all dark-skinned people in concentration camps. That's what they did in America, by the way, World War II. They already were locking up Chinese people and Japanese people because, you know, they're all the same. So then the Japanese did what they did. Now every Japanese person got to get locked up. You know, we can make the excuse for it. It's a wartime thing. But guess what? A lot of those Japanese families still receive low-key reparations because you consider them to be a people. You don't consider my people to be a people. And by the way, I'm not fighting for reparations because at the end of the day, I feel like we need to make sure we do for ourselves. And that's the thing that a lot of y'all miss. You hear me say something and you're so miffed. I can't believe that he's talking about this. He wants me. I don't want any. I'm not going to give him anything. I don't want you to give me a thing. I want you to do what the people who got reparations for us in the first place did. I want you to leave us alone. Leave us alone. If you don't have the basic human decency to treat me as a human being anyway, just leave me alone. Right? You hear what I'm saying? You can just leave me alone. Right? Like, and that's what being a private citizen is. That's what being a non-citizen national is. Just leave me alone. I can grow my own food. I don't need to make sure that I'm dependent on you. My wife knows how to forage. My wife knows how to make medicine. I know how to make a living without having to have a 9-to-5. Like, we're straight. We're teaching those principles. Right? Like you keep talking about, oh, I don't owe you anything. I don't care if you owe me. Right? Malcolm X taught us this. Malcolm X said, look, he said, you're in a bad position when you got to keep asking your enemy for a job. Yeah, and they hate self-sufficiency, which, by the way, see, stuck on the past. See, and that's fine. See, why I'm not worried about the government in my future is because I learned from my past. But y'all don't get that. So y'all keep being mad when somebody brings up something. You're using past language to talk about things in the future, but you don't get that they're using past laws that they created to control others, to control you today, and to control you further going on. Right? Well, not only that. See, watch this. Here's the lie. When did chattel slavery end? Like, let's deal with the devil's in the details. The devil's in the details. When did chattel slavery end? Right? When did chattel slavery end? Sister Tracy, it says you're a moderator. I don't know what else to tell you. I'll go ahead and take you off, or be a one, I guess. And then I'll put you back on this one. But it says you're a moderator with everything, with all full stuff. But uh-oh. See, now I done took you off. Now it won't let me put you back on. It's interesting. See, now I got to go back to you. I don't even know where you are, Sister Tracy. Yeah, I said you were a moderator. I just tried to take you off so I can put you back on. Now it says you're not one. There we go. Okay, you should be one now again. All right. So yeah, but we have to recognize, right? Chattel slavery never stopped. I see you. You know what? Yeah, I see you. I can't make everybody one, but I see you. Right. But hear what I'm saying. Get over it. All right, Cletus. Right. I'm not. That's your name, right? Cletus. Right. Cleophas. Cleopatricus. Okay. Look. That was wrong. Holy Spirit said that's wrong. I apologize. I shouldn't make fun of your name. I should have just blocked you. But anyways, right? You have to realize that chattel slavery never stopped. The 13th Amendment tells you that you're still a chattel slave. By the way, now it's not just based only on color. If you get arrested, that's the chattel slave. If you want to know what we're doing for the future, you can go on TikTok. You can click on my on the link tree that we have for our group. You can click on that. You can go to the website. You can see what our plans are, what we're doing, and you can also help. We feed people, we clothe people, we give education for donations. We make sure that we travel. We're making sure we're working on stuff. We're actually working on doing food trade again this year on a much bigger level than we did last year. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff we're doing, right? But once again, you keep talking about solving a problem without a problem. Make the future better, but don't talk about what we need to make better. You don't make any sense. That's cognitive dissonance. It's called being double-minded, according to our canon and our belief system. Uh-oh, if you break the law, you're a slave. How about people stop doing crime? Nope, if you pay taxes, you're a slave. Because if you're in debt, you're a slave. If you're a slave, you're in debt. Look up stuff. You don't know what it means. Even when you go to prison, you are paying a debt to society. Capitalism. You have to give capital to something. And if the judge messes up with you, you can even, if you know how to do it, if a judge doesn't know what they're doing and they mess up and they want to be disobedient to the law, you can actually take their property. You can put a lien on their property. You don't want to know why? Because it's about capital. So even when you're talking about people doing things that are wrong because they're slaves, this and that, whatever, you got to recognize and realize that, oh, wait a minute, it's about capital. He or she that has the capital is king or queen. And you have forgotten that an overseer is nothing more than a house negro, and a house negro is nothing more than an overseer. So if you're an overseer fighting to make sure that you keep the slaves in check, then we should check you. The reason why they call the people in Punch Bowl contraband, once again, is because they stole somebody else's property. That's why, you see, you're not considered to be 3/5 of a human being. You are considered to be 0% of a human being. The 3/5 compromise existed after they made you 0% of a human being. The North and the South had to pay taxes. After they fought against England to not pay taxes, to not be slaves, they made slaves out of everybody and made them pay taxes, right? Well, when the South was paying taxes and the North was paying taxes, the North said, hey, why in the world are you guys not paying taxes on your slaves? They said, why would we? They said, well, if you have human beings, you should pay taxes on them. We pay taxes on humans. We're paying taxes on our slaves like humans. The South said, no, they're not humans, right? Well, then they said, how do you suggest we pay taxes? They said, well, treat them like they are property. Since they're property, they're 0% of a human being. What do we do with our property then? Well, you guys own 3/5 of the land. We own 2/5 of the stuff. Well, guess what we'll do? Okay, you will pay 60% on our property. You'll pay 40% on the property. 3/5 compromise. Right? The slave was never a person. They were always chattel. They were always property. If you have a birth certificate and you live by the name on that birth certificate and you haven't made sure that you got your DS-11 form done, guess what you still are? You are still property. It's called stocks and bonds. You guys think that stock, see, you don't realize that everything you do goes around chattel slavery and capitalism. You are the capital. That's why the country is not in debt, because they have your birth certificates. Your birth certificates are worth at least $6.5 million per birth certificate. When they average out what everybody makes, there's so few people that make so much money that it actually averages down from all these billionaires and stuff. And some of the people y'all don't even know exist that they never put on your Forbes list and all that stuff, right? It averages down to where you guys, each birth certificate is worth about $6.5 million, right? So your country is never in debt. They can get more money printed. They're not allowed to print their own money, but there are masters who allow them to print money. Right? Okay, thank you, Tracy. So your money, right? Thanks for bringing it to my attention. So your money, right, has slave masters on it. Yeah, it's a $6.5 million per person. That's how much you're worth to them. And it's still not what you're really worth, because you don't have a value that should be only limited to fiat cash. Right? But your birth certificate alone. Now, peep game. This is how much they know about you and you don't know about yourself. May I give you something? Yes, we know that a lot of Americans are Aboriginals, right? And the word American, the actual original definition of American, is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas, right? So we're in agreement on that. Now that we got that, right? Let's keep on going though, because he will miss that. And we don't even talk about the fact that there were people coming over to the Americas before chattel slavery existed, right? Which means that you're still mixed with a bunch of other people. You're not just only native only, right? People don't get that part either. Well, you're talking about, that African slavery and slaves from African, they didn't really come to America like that. Number one, they came through other places. It was a slave trade, triangular slave trade. Number two, it's bigger than just your country or which the country you think is yours, right? Number three, like if I steal one seed and I plant 500 trees based off of the one seed that I stole, then all the seeds and all the trees and all the generations that come out of that, they all come from one seed. So by stealing one seed, I still sold 500 trees that gave thousands of seeds, right? We don't look at it right. We're not looking at this but see, you have to stop omitting the details. The devil should be in the details, but when you get rid of the details, the devil slides. And I didn't say the devil is in the white man. I'm talking about the devil, the actual devil that a lot of y'all don't want to talk about. Right? Like all he got to do is steal one of your children to end up having a whole lot of your family messed up. And he can't even steal them because you have to authorize him to do it. And if you won't be honest about what he's doing, then he gets to just go skate in, right? Well, we're trying to get there. We can get to places such as Central Park, of course, which used to be called, what was it, Seneca Falls or Seneca Valley or something like that. Seneca Falls, was it? Right? Or even the water that's right next to it that used to be another place, to where they literally either put one place underwater and then they just killed the rest of the people or scattered them and took their land. And now you run on it and you call it Central Park and have the audacity to say the Central Park five black men had to be able to do an atrocity to this woman. You say you have any questions? How about this? Treat people as human beings. Welcome. Right? I can tell just by your tone why somebody muted you, right? But it looks like they only muted you this time for 5 minutes. So if you can hang in there and say stuff like, hello, how are you doing? Even if you disagree cordially, right? I haven't been disrespectful to not one person on here. But for some reason, y'all think that me being respectful means that you're allowed to give disrespect. Even that is something that people they want to omit from the details. Now, if you weren't being disrespectful, then that's fine. And that's something we catch. But also you got to realize you got to be careful what you say on here. Because even some of the nonsense y'all leave on here, TikTok will be like, oh, we saw that on your live. We're going to take down the whole live just because you made a comment that's crazy. I'm doing well, thank you. How you doing this rising, Chris? Right. So you don't recognize, like, the devil is in the details. The devil is in the details. Remember, we talked about Punch Bowl, and they didn't tell you about the fact that, and all that stuff that we listened to, where the guy talked about the devil's punch bowl, right in Mississippi. Some of y'all live in Mississippi, right? Right in Mississippi. They didn't tell you that the devil's punch bowl, it was a place where basically people were worked to death, and they would literally tell them that when somebody fell down, go ahead and bury them where they fell. They would say that. Go ahead, bury them where they fell. We're not even going to leave it where it can't be found later. We're not thinking that far ahead. See, some of y'all keep talking about making sure that you're only future based. See, you come from people who weren't even thinking about their future, thinking about their past. If they were smart, they would have actually said, you know what? Let's go ahead and take this somewhere and hide it so that nobody can ever attach this to the Union, to the United States Corporation. Because who did the Union Army fight for? Here's something else. But you're so busy fighting against me. Who did the Union Army fight for, y'all? Who does the Union Army represent? They represent the Union. Who is the Union? The Union is the United States Corporation. You're mad at me because you don't want to admit that something's culturally unreal, or should be unreal, but it's not. It's a bad dream. For me to unearth this person that you buried, right? It's a bad dream because it means that you can go to jail for what you did. Come on. It's a bad dream. You said nobody was alive, was there, but they blamed you. You missed it. See, once again, I unearthed the nightmare because of the Union, the United States Corporation, that you're so busy fighting for, and don't realize they got you fighting for something that you didn't even do by your own admittance just now. You just said you never were there. You want me to give you something. I don't want anything from you. I don't need anything from you, especially if you don't have empathy for me and my people, or even people that are like-minded, that are grabbed into this. I don't want this stuff from you. I don't want more. I don't want you to continue to omit certain parts of the story and then say, well, I omitted it because it doesn't matter because I wasn't part of it. But then you want me to learn about George Washington, who's not even the first president of the United States Corporation. I don't want that from you. If that's what you're asking from me, then I'm done with that. Right? If you're asking for me to continue to be part of a corporation, not a country. 28 USC 300215A says you're not even in a country, you're in a corporation. The corporation is headquarters is in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was a territory, but since Virginia asked for the land back, it's not really a territory, but it's subject, look at the word usage, republic, kingdom, it's subject to Congress, but Congress only has power within it, but it's not a real place, and it's in a fake corporation that is housed in a fake territory. Then why are you still trying to do your best to do that? Oh no, I definitely don't think I'm Jewish, but I do have E1B1A. See, a Jew is somebody who doesn't have E1B1A all the time. I have E1B1A blood, right? I'm actually Shwe, West African, right? As well as being Tisalagi, Anakitawaya, what you would call Cherokee, having their blood as well, which guess what, is E1B1A as well. Now go do your research. I'm definitely not Jewish, but I do have E1B1A blood. Now go find out what that means. You see what I'm saying? You're so busy trying to demean and trying to depreciate. But anybody that tries to depreciate your value when you're speaking truth, it means they appreciate you. They don't realize that, but they appreciate. What does appreciate mean? They make you grow in value. See, truth is valuable. Yeah, that's why I said it was by Northerners. We've already established that, by the Union soldiers, right? And they took what they call contraband, which means that they stole what belonged to Southerners, didn't pay for it, and then made them their own slaves because they didn't like the fact they were free. Now, you guys have it in your mind that the Union fought for the freedom of slaves. But 1962, the Emancipation Proclamation was made. 1963, After Watch Night on December 31st, 1962, January 1st, 1963, supposedly the slaves were freed. But then you think 1865 is somehow when the slaves were freed. But then you don't realize the 13th Amendment that comes out later on that Lincoln helped to establish, although he wasn't alive to see it ratified. Then all of a sudden the 13th Amendment comes into being, which says that now you can be a chattel slave as long as we arrest you. It's not based on just your color. All right. And then they got rid of freedmen, made the 14th Amendment to say anybody that's born on the land they took from the freedmen now belongs to them. It's just interesting that we're going to omit the details, but then try to solve the problem. See, I can't ask for reparations from a group of people that don't even know. Some of you don't know that I can't get reparations unless you consider me to be a people. Unless you consider us to be a people, we can't get reparations. Stop voting for people when they say and saying, see, they say they're going to get us reparations. They can't get you what you don't deserve because in their deserve, right? They should be able to serve you, and it's supposed to be breaking it down, right? You're supposed to break down something in order to be able to serve it. Or break yourself down. Either you deserve something means that you've done something to deconstruct something that allows you to be able to serve. But you can't, they can't deconstruct you and put you in a place where you're a people. So you don't deserve, you can't be served reparations. Yes, we have a podcast, but it's more stuff if you want on YouTube channel, on Facebook, even things of that nature, right? But you're trying to talk about stuff you deserve. You don't deserve reparations according to them because they don't think you're a people. Go look up in law, Black's Law Dictionary, which is not written by a black person. The person's last name is Black, right? Black's Law Dictionary, which is the most used dictionary in the West, probably all over the world, but definitely in the West. Go look up in Black's Law Dictionary, right? And go look up the term black. You'll discover that black, colored, Negro, or African American are all considered to be fake people. You said slavery was not at the top of the list for the start of the Civil War? Not true. Why did Georgia say? Go look. See, you had to make a declaration, right? You had to make a declaration of your separation, right? Go look at what Georgia declared, why they were leaving. Go look at why South Carolina declared why they were leaving. Go look at Texas. No. See, you're going to do the whole, it was states' rights. That's lost cause rhetoric that didn't start being taught until the daughters of the Confederacy started teaching it when they started telling their elders and stuff. And look, I get it. It's their husbands, it's their fathers, it's their brothers, right? Their uncles, etc. Their sisters, their mothers who died in the in this war, right? But go look up what Georgia said. Matter of fact, it's not that difficult to do, right? Let's just go ahead and I'll just Google. Let's just look up, right? Reasons why did states secede from the Union? They have to write, they drafted letters to tell you why. They couldn't just secede, right? They drafted letters. Right? Let's look at what these states said. I'm gonna try to see if I can find, because you got to write it in carefully because they don't let it find it that easily. So I want to make sure. Give me a couple seconds. It might take me a little bit. Why did states secede from the Union in their own words? That might give me more. See, because you'll hear, oh no, it wasn't this and that, but institutional slavery was up top. Don't forget Jefferson Davis, who becomes the first president, or the only president of the Confederacy. Don't forget that Jefferson Davis is famous because he made a speech. Don't forget Jefferson Davis is famous because of a speech he made. That's what got him voted in. He knew what he was doing. He knew the states were going to secede. You got to recognize the states North and South thing was what part of what even caused the original, what you call Revolutionary War. But y'all don't, we don't want to be honest about it. But let's look at this. See, it's difficult. They hide it. Oh, they hide it so well. Right? But I'm gonna find it for you real quick because people don't do research. They just believe what somebody wrote down and that's it. They just believe what somebody wrote down and that's it. It had nothing to do with this stuff. All right, let's go by this by states. You ready? You ready? Let's do this by states. Let's do this by states since you guys think I'm just whatever. Let's go with what the state said. Remember, the burden of proof is not on us, it's on those that came before us. Are you ready? Are you ready? Y'all ready? Let's go through it. Right now, I'm not gonna say every state wrote it out this way, but let's just read what they said. Let's just read what it says. Okay. Let's read what it says. I'm just gonna read what it says. Here we go. All right. Each declaration makes the defense of slavery a clear objective. So, what did Mississippi say? Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. Can we stop right there? Can we stop acting like we can't see what's going on? Can we you know what I'm saying? Like can we legit like stop playing with this? Mississippi says right from the top, our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. First sentence. I didn't even make it through the first sentence. You said African American ain't African. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And you're mixed with a lot more than what you think, because Negro means the indigenous and the American and the ones brought over. But nevertheless, right? Let's stay on in line, right? Like people can't stay in. Let's just stay on target. Let's focus. People don't want to focus because people got to be right and not righteous. Yeah, right. So Mississippi. Let's read the rest of it. I didn't even make it through the first sentence. But let's just read the rest of it. You ready? Mississippi says, our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. Its labor supplies product, which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of commerce of the earth. These products have become necessities of the world, and a blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization. What they say? A blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization. In other words, we make money off this. And if y'all are going to take away slavery or try to make it fit into capitalism, we're going to fight you, because the ones of us who make the money, because remember, it's really only a small percentage. It's the 1% of 1% of the 1% of 1%, but they control everybody, just like they control your mindsets today. What is the definition of capitalism? Capitalism is defined as politics and economics used to control trade and industry. That trade industry is wielded by private corporations and not the state. They control your trading industry by controlling your polls, your opinions, the opinions of the people, the politics, and your economics. They control your money. So in order to defend what you think makes you value, because they told you you're only valuable according to how much fiat cash they give you, you're fighting for something that's not yours. So once again, these products have become necessities. This is what Mississippi says, not Kofi. You told me that that's not why they left. So let's just read what they said. All right. Mississippi said, these products have become necessities of the world, and a blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization. That blow has been long aimed at the institution, that means slavery, and was at the point of reaching its consummation. There was no choice. Hear what they're saying. You keep telling me that's not what they said. But the burden of proof is not on us. It's on those that came before us, right? So this is what they said. They said that blow was long aimed at the institution, and it was at the point of reaching consummation. In other words, we probably were going to get rid of us being able to be chattel slave owners the way we were, and we don't want to do it any other way. Therefore, there was no choice left us but submission to the mandates of abolition or a dissolution of the Union, whose principles had been subverted to work out our ruin. If you take away slavery from us, you're going to ruin us. That's what Mississippi said. Right? But let's keep going, because somebody said, no, that's not, it's about states' rights. It's about this, about that. Okay, let's read what Texas had to say. What did Texas say? If you live in Texas, right? By the way, y'all know Texas is called, Six Flags, the park Six Flags that now has made its way all over the country. It came out of Texas first. Why did they call it Six Flags? Because it was under the flags of Mexico. It was under the flag of natives. It was under the flag of the United States Union. Before that, it was trying to be independent. Then it tried to become part of the Confederacy, right? And I'm forgetting the sixth one. I'm sorry, there's one I'm missing. But y'all get it, right? Six Flags, right? That's what it is, right? So they were under the Confederacy. Spain, thank you. There you go. Right. So they were under the Confederacy, Six Flags. Now watch this. Texas. This is what Texas said. That's why Texas is always threatening to try and become their own country again. Okay. This is what Texas said. Texas said the servitude of the African race. Now we know that means some natives were mixed in there too. But let's be honest. What did Texas say? The servitude of the African race. Well, everybody was a slave, and there were black slave owners and there were white slaves and black. Texas said the servitude was it the servitude of the African race as existing in these states is mutually beneficial to both bond and free. Wait a minute. So black people being served, having to be in perpetual servitude, right? That's what they have you sign on your music contracts, by the way, and what that you sign on your television and movie contracts that they can use your image and likeness. They have ownership over it in perpetuity throughout the universe. You are a slave, right? But they said specifically these black folk that have that kind of perpetual servitude, right? Slavery is mutually beneficial to both the people in bond, stocks and bonds. Remember I mentioned that earlier, right? Your name is the stock, and then they put a little border around it as the bond, because y'all don't know, in Wall Street now, the stocks and bonds, they used to have auctions. They were slaves, and the slaves came up in stocks, and that stock, you paid for the stock and you paid a bond, and they were also bound. They were also bonded. Right? My ancestors walked in the Trail of Tears as well. Matter of fact, I have a history of it. If you know our history, or our story, rather, not his story, but our story, where even those of me who were Cherokee owned some of my family who was slaves. And then when Abraham Lincoln forced them to have to give up slavery and shorten the territory, because we had the Cherokee part of us had gone ahead and went with the Confederacy, then they had to release the slaves and they started marrying into each other. Yeah, when you know about who you are, even the stuff you're talking about, learning yourself, it can kind of hurt, right? But the servitude of the African race as existing in these states is mutually beneficial to both bond and free, and is abundantly authorized and justified by the experience of mankind. So who is mankind? Whose opinion matters? He says it's justified by this particular group of people's experience. Remember, you can't get asked for something if you're not a people. How you ask for reparations? They don't consider you to be a people. Considering their experience, that's what Texas said. Their experience, the people who was in charge of Texas at the time, who would have wrote this? You said, why do I keep removing people's comments? I'm not doing anything. The moderators are. The moderators listen just like you, and if they feel like you are doing something that's disrespectful, right, then they have to do what they got to do. I trust them. Okay, so, and abundantly authorized and justified by the experience of mankind and the revealed will of the Almighty Creator. They said that the Creator, see, they worship God, not Elohim, and God can be whatever you want. So they said the Almighty Creator believes that this is mutually beneficial to the white people and to the black slaves. That's what they said. That's what they said. That's what they said. But you're busy telling me that no, they just left because of. Right, but that's what Texas said. Then they said, as recognized by all Christian nations. But America's not even a Christian nation. You lying, bro. So now guess what the Confederacy is becoming? Because the United States of America has never been a Christian nation. Matter of fact, if you look at what happened to your Constitution, George Washington couldn't become your president, and you couldn't get the Constitution that you have now unless it was a Muslim sultan. Nobody would actually do business with the United States of America when they got free. So they weren't sovereign. Sovereignty has to come from somebody else who's sovereign. So Moroccan Sultan said, I'll go ahead and do business with you. That's how you became a sovereign nation. So you're not even. So you never were. You were never a Christian nation. By the way, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all these people, they were deists. They believed they could become gods. That's why George Washington has an obelisk representing his phallus sticking up out of the ground. Right? He lost his phallus because he died of syphilis. Oh, you say I'm delusional, but you don't know how story works, right? Why does he have an obelisk? He's the new Osiris. Who's on top of the Congress building across the National Mall? Columbia. Who does Columbia represent? ISIS. You said who cares? Well, if you don't care, why do you say something, right? Obviously you care, right? But you don't have to stay on. Race baiting, race baiting. He's race baiting, right? Because I'm telling you the truth. You guys are the ones that told me that the states left because of states' rights or whatever y'all were going to come up with. You guys said that slavery had nothing to do with it. I'm just reading what your state said. When you found out the largest plantation owner was black, that's first of all, that's kind of true. Except he didn't have the largest plantation, number one. So that's a lie. But people put that there because that's alt-right type mindset, right? So they put that out there so you can say up what other people did. But number two, what is Washington, D.C.? Yeah, I do, because I believe people in 1950 were more honest about their hating people than a lot of people who will not listen to what you have to say, but then will tell you that, hey, you should just go with what I have to. And when they do, then that's when they hang you in public opinion rather than sometimes hanging you physically. See, Washington, D.C. is a plantation. That's what it was built for. George Washington went to Maryland and Virginia. He asked them for land. He put a White House in the center of it. He had people, including Thomas Jefferson, who came in number two. Somebody else built it when Thomas Jefferson, the third president, becomes, or at least third president if you start with George Washington. There were other ones before him. Why do you keep sulking in the past? I want you to know that if you are a United States citizen, then by law you are still a slave. You're a debt slave. That's why you pay taxes. Didn't you guys fight against taxes? You don't comprehend how this works. Stop being so concerned about the word slave and trying to say that I want something from you. I don't want anything from you except for you to break from the system. Get it in your heart. Allow your heart to be able to get the word that's being given so that something can be sown that allows you to grow. Stop. Right? Stop it. Stop it. Like, stop for a second. Stop being so emotional and get to a place where it's like, hey, I can actually hear what somebody has to say. Right? The 13th Amendment allows for chattel slavery. Stop talking about this in the past. If you still are using a constitution that allows for chattel slavery, then you still agree with slavery. Stop. Stop for a second. Stop for a second. Stop for a second and calm down. You're so emotionally attached to a belief that you don't know comes from a wicked culture. Stop for a second. Yes, I know that there are black people that own slaves. We've said this already. All slave owners are terrible. Yeah, 10 square miles of territory, right? Quit crying. See, that's what I'm saying. People don't even see it. Anyways, let's keep on going because this is what you guys said. See, somebody tells me that I'm wrong, and then I start telling you the truth. And what's the response? Ad hominem. Stop crying. You're a crybaby. Why are you on a crybaby's channel then? Because whether you believe this or not, you know that something about this is resonating with you. You don't know you're not mature enough sometimes to handle it correctly, so you come out in anger. Yeah, I've talked about the Irish and African relationships and things like that, including people from Ireland that I've sat down and broken bread with. And they say that they don't like it when we just try to omit facts about stuff. But yeah, the Isle of Montserrat is the biggest one. Right, go look at the Isle of Montserrat, and then you'll discover I know what I'm talking about. But of course, we could talk about a Choctaw memorial that's in Dublin, right? I believe it's in Dublin, right? Am I right in where? Yeah, I think it's Dublin, right? And how Irish people are still fighting with Ghanaians and with really more so than Ghanaians with Nigerians against the police stuff that's happening, things like that. Of course, right? I just mentioned all that earlier. I'm not going to go back into that, right? So I'm not going to go back into that, but I've made that very clear. Once again, anybody who's owned by slaves, right? We should listen to what they have to say. Anybody. That means any slave owner, we should also make sure we take note of what they did. Anybody. Idi Amin did atrocities. We should take note of what he did. Papa Doc, atrocities. We should take note of what he did. Shaka Zulu did many great things. Some things probably not so great, including wiping out tribes if they didn't just get down with what he said. Sometimes the tribe just gave up and now, gave in or whatever. But hey, that's not cool. Anybody. Antipati. All right, let's keep on going. What does South Carolina say? South Carolina said those states or those union states have assumed the right of deciding upon the propriety of our domestic institutions. What is the domestic institution? What was the institution they were using in South Carolina? Come on, somebody. Right? Our domestic institution, and have denied the rights of property established by 15 of the states and recognized by the Constitution. They were telling you your Constitution recognizes slavery, and it does. It just uses terms like bond. So you don't think about it as slavery because we don't look at etymology. So you're busy telling me they didn't fight for these, right? But that's why they left the Union in the first place. So if the Union fought to say, hey, we want you guys to be back, you should have never seceded in the first place. Stop betraying us and being traitors. And we want capitalism to flow or whatever. Guess what? They were seceding. They wrote letters to tell them why they weren't going to be in capitalism anymore. They thought they were doing it in a righteous manner, in a Christian manner, as we just read earlier. That's what they said. Right. So South Carolina says the Union States have assumed the right of deciding upon the propriety of our domestic institutions and have denied the rights of property established in 15 of the states and recognized by the Constitution. They have denounced as sinful the institution of slavery. What? They have announced as sinful. So they're saying that the Union started using terms like sinful. They're saying that the Union is saying that it's sinful. So wait a minute. If they're trying to say that this is sinful, well, we feel fine. If we're going to do this, y'all don't even live as no Christian nation. And then on top of that, we're the real Christians down here in the South, the Bible Belt and all that. Lord knows, not Lord, but Lord knows. Lord knows that we be simple folks out here, and we as Christians, we dang sure make sure that we follow what the Most High says. That's what they said the other state just said, right? So now you have another state in South Carolina saying, how dare they say that we's the one that's sinful? We's not the ones that's sinful. We's the ones that's righteous. Because slavery is a institution. What did Texas say? They said this slavery is mutually beneficial to both the bond and the free. You said, would I be okay with my family dating white people? I would want anybody. First of all, we don't date in my culture. We make sure that we teach people what a husband and wife is prior to marriage, and we make sure that they go through certain things in our culture. They have to meet certain requirements, certain steps. Like my son, for example, would have to then get his inheritance at age 21, and he would go somewhere else and start working on that, and he would have to find a wife according to what our standards are. So that's number one, right? If he finds a wife and she's going to be able to support him and be his helpmeet, and what he's going to do, and he's going to be able to make sure that vision is something that can incorporate there, and we're going to meet with their family to make sure that everything's going to be okay on both sides of the family to begin that conversation. So if you think that's going to be done by somebody, right? If you think that's going to be done by somebody of any color, then that's great. But I would assume that many people who are considering themselves white, remember, white's not even a color. White was made up as a color. White used to mean bright. It used to mean clear. It used to mean you could see through it. It meant that color reflected off of it. Now you think there's a white person. There's no such thing as a white person. So was I there? I don't know. Were you? Were you there to tell me it doesn't matter? See, like, what are we doing? Right? Were you there to write the Constitution? Do you follow the laws of the Constitution? Do you want constitutional rights? Stop it, right? See what I'm saying? Just get it together. Like, stop. You know what I'm saying? You just want to fight. You don't want to look for truth. Anyways, so South Carolina says, well, let me just go back to the beginning. Those Union states have assumed the right of deciding upon the propriety of our domestic institutions and have denied the rights of property established in 15 of the states and recognized by the Constitution. They have denounced as sinful the institution of slavery. So that's the opposite side, right? They have permitted open establishment among them of societies whose avowed object is to disturb the peace and to allowing the property of the state, of the citizens of other states. In other words, these people think that it might be okay to let black people walk on the street. Even if they're going to be low-class black folk, we don't want them walking around at all. You said be stuck in poverty, nobody cares. How much land you own? How many times you got to go to work till 9 to 5? People don't like it when you don't have to be a slave to what they're a slave to. I'm done with my 9 to 5. I don't have to wait for master to tell me. And I want my people to get out of that too. Right? You hate. Why do you hate somebody who's trying to show you the way to freedom? Right? And it's not even my freedom. I give you something that's better and greater than I. Right? You know what I'm saying? Anyways, right? I'm trying to serve something that's bigger than myself. I want you to be better than me. I want you to have 75 properties by the time you're done. I want you to have so many properties that you can do whatever you want. And hopefully whatever you want is to make this stuff be better. And maybe if you own 7,000 properties, maybe you don't even need money off of a whole bunch of them. So maybe if you only ask people to pay taxes on your property, they can live there and their families can live there for generations to come. And you can create a community off of like-minded people. You could do that easy if you came together, but you don't want to come together. You want to fight. Right. And thank you, moderators, for today, because I know it's a tough thing for y'all to deal with. But see, some of y'all didn't experience real love, real affection for you. Right. I want you to succeed. I want you to stop thinking that the United States corporation loves you more than you can love yourself. I want you to love yourself. I'm sorry. It's been a wild one today, boy. Right. But I want you to love yourself. Why do you only see yourself through the prism of a corporation that keeps lying to you? I'm just telling you truth, and you're getting upset with truth. You know what I'm saying? I'm just giving you context, contextual facts. You've had facts without context. You have context without facts. Let me give you some contextual facts today. And if it blows your mind, right, after your mind settles back in, study it for yourself to see if I'm making sense or not. Yeah, propaganda led after the war, the lost cause rhetoric. That's where a lot of people are arguing. You don't even know what the lost cause rhetoric is. Have you ever even heard of manifest destiny? That goes with Darwinism, that comes from Linnaean things. Do you know what I'm even talking about? Do you even know what a Linnaean mindset does to a Darwinistic mindset that marries a manifest destiny mindset that gives you Rudyard Kipling? Who is Rudyard Kipling? Do you even know who Rudyard Kipling is? Let me just see, the devil's in the details. These are things that you thought you were so educated in because you had 1 degree of knowledge when there's 360 degrees in a circle. Who is Rudyard Kipling? He's the one who wrote the Jungle Book. The movie you've seen, the movies y'all always see are only little tiny pieces of it. Stay a victim, stay down there, blame others. I don't want your help. Do you hear me? I don't want your help. I don't need your help. And that's what you don't like. Keep crying, keep failing. Am I failing? How many jobs you got to work? See, they say you keep failing, you keep failing. I keep coming out more free. I don't need you. That's the problem for you. You said, what about the white people who fought against slavery? Oh, yeah. Look up Pastor John Brown. That's my man's. People try to make him look crazy still to this day. That's my man's right there. Anybody who's fighting for freedom of anybody. Let's get it. Let's get it. See, you coming with stuff that's not my mindset. You think that I'm going to reverse what somebody else did to us. I'm not here to reverse what somebody else did to us. I couldn't if I wanted to. I don't have the infrastructure in place. I don't have the infrastructure in place. You related to John Brown? That's awesome. Right? John Brown, he put his blood on it, though. John Brown was out there preaching, got kicked out of his congregation. John Brown had to basically start his own church in a certain extent. Right? John Brown was fighting in the Kansas Wars with his sons. Y'all don't even know what the Kansas Wars are. That's the details left out. Right? John Brown, white pastor. John Brown, who when they were getting ready to hang him, when he had the rope around his neck, guess what John Brown said? He basically, and I'm sorry, I'm not quoting exactly, go look it up for yourself, but he basically said, look, there's coming a time where you guys are going to have to pay for these sins that you've done to these people because they were always people. And so I'm glad to die for them. And I'm praying because I'm sad to see what's about to happen to y'all when it comes. That's what John Brown said. When they put the noose around his neck, that's how he was talking. That's my man's. Right? That's my man's. He graphed in. Like that's my play uncle right there, John Brown. Right? And he was out there fighting the Kansas Wars. See, y'all don't know the Kansas Wars. The Kansas Wars, many different territories. This is how it worked, right? They were supposed to have that Mason-Dixon line. That's why in your country you start looking at stuff like that goes across, like Oklahoma, and all of a sudden Oklahoma and stuff like that, like seems like it's really flat and stuff like that. Well, it was because they're supposed to be this straight line. that went across, right? And it goes across all these states. They did that on purpose. The states that were supposed to be in the bottom were supposed to be slave states. The states that were on top were supposed to be based in capitalism. We still had slavery. It just was capital first, right? And then everybody on the bottom who gets arrested, you can be a slave. And if you're in debt, you're a slave, et cetera, right? And thank you for the love. So basically, you have other states, though, that are starting to come in, and they're starting to be like, well, we want that state to be a slave state too. North is like, you tripping. You said that could be a free state. South like, no, we want that to be a slave state. So they start coming up with rules so before this becomes a state, we'll make it a territory. And this territory, once a certain amount of people, I think it was like 100,000 people, if I'm not mistaken, but they had a certain particular number they had to hit. Once they hit that number, they said, okay, if we hit this number, right? If we hit this number, then they can vote on whether they want to be slave or whether they want to be free. So all the free states and all the slave states started having mass exoduses like that they forced, and they started pushing people that had their belief system into those places. And so they wanted to make sure that they could win the vote. So they started fighting with each other, including places like in Kansas, the Kansas territory, where they had what's called the Kansas Wars. So in 1856, 4 years before the Civil War, they already had this fight break out to where it was the South versus the North. You just didn't call it that yet, or to call it the Civil War, because people hadn't officially ran away. But you guys don't know that even before 1776, the North and the South were already fighting for power. That's why you had the Three-Fifths Compromise. It was a compromise between the South and the North. It was not a compromise for you to only be 60% of a human being. You were 0% of a human being, but since the South had 60% of the territory, they paid 60% of the taxes on you as property. Right? So that's what the Kansas Wars is for. You think the Civil War is the beginning of everything. The Civil War started way after the fighting was started. The Revolutionary War was a fight over people who wanted to go into capitalism, the English, right? Because that's what you are, even if you want to say you now not them anymore. The English versus those who were English but wanted to keep chattel slaves. So Pastor John Brown and his boys were fighting in the Kansas Wars, and Pastor John Brown was part of the. He was born back in 1800. He dies when he's killed, or basically, I'd say even assassinated. But I guess he did. You could say it's a war crime because of what he did, and he did even accidentally shoot somebody he was trying to defend. Right? Not perfect. However, he was down for the cause. His children shed blood. He shed blood, and he basically said, like, look, y'all gonna have to pay for this some way, shape, or form. He dies in 1859, 59 years old. So I'm not, or 58 or 59, one of them. But I'm 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 here to say that if somebody did that, then of course we would talk about those things. Of course we should talk about those things. Why is it that you don't want to talk about it? Well, if he died in 1859, right? Because I've been to where he basically died, and I've been to where he, Harper's Ferry as well. So I can't really, I can't really say that if he was born. I'm pretty sure he was born in 1800. So I think he died in 1859, right? So, so what I'm saying is that you are not there, John Brown, Pastor John Brown. And if you read about him, people still to this day, well, was he crazy, or was he somebody we should look at? How was he crazy? Because he wanted black people to be free. 1833. Okay, I have to go look at that. I don't think that's correct. Or if it is, then I'm reading something that's not correct. Either way, love the man, right? You might be schooling me on something. I thought it was 1800, but it could be, right? Nevertheless, however old he was, right? He fought for slave rights, right? And thank you for the correction. I might be wrong. For some reason I got 1800 in my head. I could be wrong, right? But at the end of the day, he died for us, in a sense. Not even in a sense. That's what he was fighting for. He's kept. Well, imagine being a preacher. It happens today, by the way. There's a lot of preachers that lose their jobs because they say that we should talk about the mistreatment of black people in America. There's pastors out there that lose their jobs. Y'all know that, right? Still to this day. But you say leave it in the past. But why is it still happening today? Why? Because if you ignore a problem, you cannot solve what you ignore. Right? There's a famous quote that anytime the truth is covered by silence, the silence is a lie. Anytime the truth is covered by silence, that silence is a lie. We just showed you what MLK said. And that's the whole thing that really gets me too about, let me just post what MLK says up for, and then we'll read it again, right? But let's read the Georgia part. What Georgia said. This is what Georgia said. They said this is why we're leaving. They said the reason was, this is why they said they left. This is why they said Georgia said they seceded because of this. The reason was the North's fixed purpose to limit, restrain, and finally abolish slavery in the states where it exists. And by the way, they're talking about in the North too, because there were a lot of Northern slave owners. Remember, the Northern slave owners were given reparations. Right? Abraham Lincoln gave reparations to Maryland slave owners. There were a lot of slave owners in the North that got reparations because it's like, hey, we can't be talking about we're going to get rid of slavery, but y'all still got slaves up here. We got to do something about it. It's a bad look. So they paid them for it. And then the slaves just went and basically were out on the street. Right? But let's read it again. Georgia said the reason was the North's fixed purpose to limit, restrain, and finally abolish slavery in the states where it exists. The South, with great unanimity, right, being unanimity, declared her purpose to resist the principle of prohibition to the last extremity. In other words, we gonna fight to the death. We'll kill every last person. We'll teach every last person down here. We'll put the slaves out there if necessary. Y'all be like, well, what about black people? Therefore, we'll put the slaves out here to fight, to make sure that they continue to fight for massa. We'll turn field Negroes into house Negroes. Whatever it takes. They told you why they did it. Now, what did Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said? He said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And here's the thing that's interesting. You guys keep talking about you love MLK, but you're silent about things he said. You're silent about things he said. Always the victim, sure. And every victim has to have a victor. Every victor has to have a victim. So hail the victorious, who loves to create victims. You don't know how words work. Once you know how words work, these things bounce off you. It's like, full armor, breastplate of righteousness, right? Lawful standing. Learn how law works and how words work, and then it bounce off you. Hail the victorious, who create victims. You can't have a victim without a victor. You can't have a victor without a victim. Right? So here's what they teach about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Remember we're talking about today that the devil should be in the details. Problem is that we've gotten rid of the detail. You said Robert E. Lee. Yeah, it's funny how Robert E. Lee is presented as somebody who was supposed to be. I went to high school in Alexandria, Virginia. I can't remember if I went to high school in Fairfax County, put it like that. And in Fairfax County, Robert E. Lee High School is a place where we play basketball against. And I went there for like concert band, to the state band and all that stuff. And when you go there, the interesting thing about that is when you go there and you look at that, you will discover very quickly that Robert E. Lee is always presented, including on his property in Virginia. If you ever get a chance to go there, now they've had to change it recently and tell the truth. But they used to always say, hey, Robert E. Lee, he didn't really want to even fight for South. He didn't even really care about slavery like that. He just wanted, but he had to be Virginian. They didn't look at the country, they looked at their state. And since his state was seceding, then he seceded with the state. But that's once again, they omitted details. Oh, you did the same? Okay, cool. So the devil, and then the details should be, but you omit the details. Robert E. Lee was a slave owner. Robert E. Lee straight up said, well, look, when it comes to slavery, we'll let God sort that out. God has allowed slavery, so if God doesn't want slavery, then he'll get rid of it. Okay. Robert E. Lee goes into the North, and you guys have heard part of the story. He goes into the North and does very successful. He breaks down and beats down and burns down a whole bunch of stuff, and then he comes, and then eventually he starts losing. But y'all didn't hear the whole story. They left out some details. What about the fact that he went up in there, and whether people were free or runaway or whatever, he just grabbed as many black people as he could and brought them back into the South, and then him and Jefferson Davis made sure they were all sold into slavery. Why are people doing this when we say that? Because Robert E. Lee is your God. He one of your gods. You have to make him. You've tried your best to make Grant, the Union person that they always try to say, oh, he was dumb, he was stupid, he was drunk. The only reason y'all believe that is because eventually the Daughters of the Confederacy, with the lost cause rhetoric, they started telling you that was going on. But when Grant died, there were a bunch of letters that people were writing to him as he was on his deathbed when people found out about it. And come to find out, a lot of them were written by Confederate soldiers. And they kept saying how much respect they had for him and how he treated them correctly and how he could have easily done this and done that and all these different things. Y'all ever, right? But nobody's going to tell you that because it doesn't make sense in the lost cause rhetoric that says that, hey, Lee was this person who was honorable, this great Christian. He was doing this, he was doing that. Like, no. He's a slave owner, Virginian slave owner. By the way, George Washington, Virginian slave owner. Dutch, right? By the way, the person who was the second president after him from the same Federalist Party worked for him, so he worked for a Virginia slave owner. That's how he got in. After that, hey, we start dealing with Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was supposed to be great, this and that, but Virginia slave owner. Right? Because the devil's in the details. Somebody starts putting this stuff together, you might realize this thing is crazy. Wait a minute. Right behind him is Madison. Don't forget, Virginia slave owner. Keep that to yourself, though. Because if we were to say that out loud too many times, people might actually learn the truth. Wait a minute. After that, we can keep on going. Who's next? Monroe. Monroe is what? Virginia slave owner. Be quiet, though. Right? Be quiet. you see what I'm saying? Oh, who was next after that? It was John Quincy Adams, the son of the second president, who worked for Virginia slave owners like his father did. Be quiet about that. What about the next person who comes up? Andrew Jackson, Tennessee slave owner who was trained in Virginia. He becomes your seventh president. Be quiet about that, though. People might start putting too much together. Same Andrew Jackson who killed off a bunch of natives. That was a reward to them because he got his arm shot, and the medicine that his people had basically couldn't do anything. So they were going to chop off his arm like they did anybody who got shot in the arm or the legs back then. But then all of a sudden, he went to a native tribe. They healed him, thought, okay, you will have love for us, and then he wiped them out. But be careful. Don't say that. What about Martin Van Buren, who was the only president whose first language was not English? He actually spoke Deutsch. He was Dutch. New York slave owner. Right? I'm not sure Polk comes next or whoever comes next, but then you got a Virginia slave owner, I believe, that comes next, number 9. But you see what I'm saying? Right? We don't want to be honest about. Right? We don't want to be honest about. Like, that's what your country is built off of if you're still trying to be a United States citizen. That's what you do. You're silent about it. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., besides just saying free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. That wasn't his speech. That wasn't his 1963 March on Washington speech. Y'all know that, right? Right? I mean, you know that he originally went in and was preaching something else, teaching something else. And then all of a sudden, nobody was saying anything, and everybody's kind of down because they had been there all day. They've been marching all day. Source, the same source that I looked at, you can look at, right? But I'm literally saying, you can look at Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. quotes to make this work. But once again, just look at, I've been to Mount Vernon, right? So go to Virginia, look up Mount Vernon. That's the manor that George Washington lived on, right? I've been to Monticello. That's Thomas Jefferson's spot. Haven't been to Madison and Monroe's spot, but they're both in Virginia. And they keep these places for you to look at so you can still worship. Okay? Right? That's they keep these places so you can still worship them. That's what they're there for. So you can say, look at Thomas Jefferson, but Thomas Jefferson has slave Bibles on there. You can actually just pull it out. Right? So I've been to these places, right? I've talked to the people that were there, and when they were trying to give us a nice story, I've been like, yeah, but what about that slave Bible? And they had to say, oh yeah, that's true. You know, it's like if you go to the Statue of Liberty and everybody be like, yeah, this is Lady Liberty and blah blah, and I'd be like, well, wasn't she supposed to be a black woman first? Like that's why she was all copper. She's green now, but she was all copper at one point, and she still is, but copper turns green after a while because you guys don't know how to treat it. And so since you couldn't treat it, she became green, and you just left her that way. Also, doesn't she have chains attached to her ankle? Because the original French man, who you guys say all the French people are bad, but the original Frenchman that made it for you, not only was he going to make her completely black, not only in just color, but also in shape, but didn't he want to show that she had chains around her wrist and all this stuff or whatever? So why is the only chain that's left the one that's around her ankle? Can you tell me that? And why can you only see it from if you know exactly where to look from the ground or if you got to be in a helicopter? Because you like, shh, silence. We'd have to admit that other people were watching, and we can't keep telling people this was just a product of the times. You know, the same Union soldiers who did the Devil's Punch Bowl, right? The same Union soldiers who gave you the Devil's Punch Bowl, and while they were giving you the Devil's Punch Bowl, guess what? While giving you the Devil's Punch Bowl, those same Union soldiers, they called you contraband because they knew you were stolen because they had not paid for you as what? Property, which means that they knew what they were doing was wrong even by their standards. So you can't tell me that it was the standard of the time when they knew they were wrong. They wouldn't have called it contraband if it wasn't wrong to take you and make you slaves and make you bury yourselves where you stood, where you fell down. And then lie about it, as we heard in the video we listened to earlier. So where the guy literally talked about the Devil's Punch Bowl on the news, but would never mention the fact that, hey, the Devil's Punch Bowl comes from what? All he said was it was a nice spot to visit. It's a nice place to visit, right? Because the devil should be in the details, but you don't like the details. The devil should be in the details. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., by the way, the only reason why he started saying free at last, it was because of a sister. But we're so misogynistic in our tendencies a lot of the times that we won't even take time out to be like, it was a sister that gave him. See, it was Sister Mahalia Jackson. If you know about gospel music, that you know about Mahalia Jackson. Mahalia Jackson is a staple of gospel music. And so if you look at Mahalia Jackson was like, hey, she had heard him make this speech where he had said, I've been to the other side. I've seen the mountaintop and I've seen the other side and I might not get there with you. He had done that speech already. You can look it up and listen to it before 1863, right? So he had already done that speech. Since people were losing energy, the speech he was giving wasn't really getting there. Mahalia Jackson, being somebody who entertains, says, you know what? I know what the gospel crowd likes, what the church folk like, and what all these people are looking for. It's the end of it. You need to hoop and holler, right? They looking for the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who speaks like this, and one day in time, they're looking for that, right? They're kind of tired. They've been listening to straight up this and that and blah blah. And they're waiting for this, and you need to get them this, and so she screams out, "Tell them about the dream, Martin." That's what she screams out. Tell them about the dream. You can even hear her on some of the recordings. Tell them about the dream. Then he pauses. Then he says, what you know today as free at last, thank God Almighty. That's when he breaks into that, right? So that wasn't even his speech. Do you know what he actually was talking about? By the way, when they were marching towards the Lincoln Memorial, do you not know that he said, we're coming and we're looking for our check? But shh, be quiet about that. Because if Martin was talking about reparations, then maybe they might be trying to figure out what reparations is too. And we can't say that they don't deserve something. We've said that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is somebody that we look up to, but we really don't. We don't know what he said. How about, do you know that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, and I'm not quoting exactly, so forgive me, but you can look up these quotes for yourself. Just Google Martin Luther King Jr. famous quotes, right? And start looking through them. All of them, not just the ones where you go, oh, see, I've heard the first two, blah, blah, right? Start looking at them. And when you do, here's something that'll bless you. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said things like, hey, there are two Americas, right? Both exist at the same time in the same place. One benefits one group of people, and doesn't benefit the other, but it's the same America, yet two at the same time. This is what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said stuff like, "Hey, whites," and he used the term whites. I'm not using that term. He used the term whites because that's what y'all used at the time, right? That's what y'all said. That's what y'all taught him you needed to be called. So he said, whites are a group of people who are disingenuous and cannot learn, and they choose to remain ignorant. Right? He said the danger of the white liberal is that they choose to remain ignorant and do not learn anything of value, and so they have become the same thing as their Southern counterparts. Okay, this is what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. You'll go with the Have a Dream speech exactly, because you'll just go with cutting off the rest of the speech that came before it, and you go with only believing what you want, so that you don't have to have anything to see should I hold somebody accountable. Even if you're saying I won't hold myself accountable, which is a heck of a thing to say, at least go, I will hold others accountable, but you can't do it. Right? But let's keep on going with what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says. Right? Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also said, I said this earlier, it is a cruel joke to tell a man to pull himself up by his bootstrap when he has no boot. What about the fact that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is the person that actually started a movement in Ireland, right? Right, free dairy, not Londonderry, for those who are Irish and actually know what I'm talking about, right? But started a movement in which one of the greatest massacres occurred when North Irish, basically Englishmen, killed them off. And then when you look at some of the North Irish pictures, the Irish pictures, you'll see, especially in Northern Ireland, you'll see like all these families together, but you see police officers in the background everywhere. Why is that? Because they couldn't go anywhere without Englishmen ready to beat the brakes off. What about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., though, when he said, what about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he said that when he said we should not make sure that we cover, or it's hypocrisy, basically, to talk about the fact that you pulled yourself by your own bootstraps and this and that or whatever when you came over and you were given land and you were given food and you were paid to have somebody come and teach you. You were paid to come over in the first place. You were paid to take over land that other people were here for or came over from Africa or wherever they came from, and were not allowed to have what you simply came over and they paid you to have. That's stuff that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had. We can keep on going down the road and down the road, but see, the only thing you care about is free at last, free at last. And in your mind, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he came, he was speaking the truth. There were some bad white people. He showed us how the way on the bus stop. Most of us got it. However, there were still some bad white people. Those white people, and I'm using the colonial social construct words, right? And in your mind, white people, because there's really no such thing as a white person. We've already talked about that. There's no color white, right? White is the absence of color. Okay, brightness, being able to see through, is not color. But nevertheless, right? These white people came and they were really bad, and they did really terrible things, and they really hated what was going on. So there was only a few of them that did that, and so they shot Martin Luther King Jr. and he died, and then we got our act together. That's why you don't want to talk about it, because that's very incorrect. It's highly inefficient, and it's highly disqualified from being able to be told that it's holistic in truth. And that's why you have a problem with it. And thank you, everybody who's coming on. Appreciate it. Thank you for the love. If I've missed it or anything like that, I appreciate you guys, right? This is why you have an issue with the truth. You have an issue with the truth. You have an issue when somebody says, like, hey, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was actually smothered in his hospital bed. That's how he died. His family sued the state because they wouldn't let criminal charges be brought against the men who they know did it, but they did sue the state and they won. That's how Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. family had money, right? He lived off of donations, right? So how does his family keep going? Who took care of his family? Well, his family won a lawsuit against the state. And thank you for the love, appreciate it, right? That's how they were taken care of. Why did you not get taught that? You said you, as a black race, are so proud of your culture, as you should be, self-ashamed of a white race. Well, I don't want you to be ashamed. I just want you to know. We have stuff that we've done wrong. And by the way, I'm not saying that all skin folk is kinfolk. I don't look at just because somebody's black that they're my family, or they're going to act like family, right? And I don't think you should do the same thing. Not all skin folk is kinfolk. If you're somebody who's, once again, white is not a real color. It's not a real person. There's no such thing as a white person, right? But if you identify as that or whatever, hey, there's people that do wrong. You call it out. You keep on moving. I appreciate the sentiment, though. Well, European means the people who belong to Rome, right? But there's no such thing as a white person. That's what they try to get us to believe. Oh, thank you, Steely. I appreciate it. Right? That's what they, or Steel, yeah. Right, right. But that's what. Oh, somebody took down Stelia. What happened? You just don't like the name or something. but I think he was doing okay. But you know, but I'm just here to tell you, right? Like it's, you know, there's a lot of different stuff that we're dealing with. You know, like we're having all these different things. Oh, he called me trans. Oh, okay. Well, I apologize and thank you. Right, if he called me something like that or whatever. Right. And by the way, if you want to call yourself that, that's fine. That's just, if I don't identify and it's wrong to not identify you correctly, then why would you misidentify me? So I get that. I appreciate that. You you know, but we don't have a mindset correct for this. We're so busy, once again, not even wanting to know truths. We omit details, right? Like for example, even in this book in our canon, right? All this stuff being told. See, I want to show you the devil's in the details because I want you to see something. Even in our book that's supposed to be our canon, how many of you keep saying God and don't know who Elohim is? How you doing, Brother Jeremy? You see the devil's in the details. You can read any canon. You can read any canon you want. You can read a surah, you can read the Lotus Sutra, right? The Kama Sutra, the Heart Sutra, etc. Yeah, it is. Because I know how to read it and I know how to speak it before, somebody changed it. But nevertheless, right? You got to see, because even when you talk about your canon, if you're still talking about gods, right, and you're talking about Afrocentric spirituality, they don't have gods, right? Even if you're talking about the Quran, right, you got to talk about it correctly. If you're talking about the Bible, you got to learn them correctly. See, that's the problem, is the devil's in the details. People are omitting details. For example, can you read the Quran without actually making sure that you have another book that goes with it? Did you know you're supposed to do that? Because the other book shows you the culture with the people that actually walk with Muhammad. So a lot of stuff that people be talking about, you're misinterpreting because you don't have the other guide to go with it. So you hear somebody say jihad and you think somebody talking about blowing something up. That's not what a jihad is. Not even close. If that's somebody's jihad, then they are wicked. Right? But see, because we don't care about that. Because we don't care about that. We don't even look that up. What about when you talk about this? You talk about 66 books, but there's more than 66 books. All you know, if you go off of this, you just go, well, Enoch was translated. He had faith. But what about the book of Joshua? What about the book of Enoch? What about the Chronicles of Noah, where they tell you what he did? See, you're so used to omitting details that you don't even know how to, right? Like, for example, if you're SGI USA, no offense, right? But I'm just saying, there's different forms of SGI now, I guess. And if you're SGI USA, you come out of SGI, Soka Gokkai. It's supposed to be some form of Buddhism that's really Japanese, coming from I forget who the person. Forgive me for right now forgetting for who the person that's supposed to be on today. I don't know if he's still alive or not, but the person was there, and then before him is Toda, and then before him is Makaguchi, and then you're going all the way back to Nichiren, and Nichiren's supposed to be the reincarnation of Buddha, etc. But they use the Heart Sutra, but they only use 2 chapters. So if you're going to be part of what they're doing, you have to know that we're not going to actually be in context. We're only going to use 2 chapters that we like to be able to get everything that we get out of it. And as much sense as that might make to somebody who's been raised in it, hopefully those of you who've not been raised in something, you would say, I want to know all of it. And this is the problem that we're really having. That's the discussion we're really trying to have with you, is that you don't realize and recognize that it's about everything. Like, don't get a piece of it and then think that you understand. How can you be under a standard that you don't know what the standard is? You said that's a false story. Yeah, that's what people tell you. That's what people tell you, right? We just talked about that earlier. We showed how people have literally falsified that over years. Yeah, thank you. The tafsir. I didn't get back to that. Yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Tafsir, I believe. I hope I'm saying that right. Tafsir, something like that. But that's what goes with the Quran, right? But I'm just saying, right? So when you even hear about Mansa Musa, you don't even know that in order to recognize some of what Mansa Musa's thinking is, that you should know the tafsir, at least a little bit, just a little bit. But here you are saying, oh, it doesn't matter about it doesn't matter. Okay, thank you, TJ, for the confirmation. It doesn't matter. Religion doesn't matter. Like Mansa Musa, by the way, what's Mansa Musa's name mean? Mansa is basically kind of sort of like saying emperor, kind of sort of, and then Musa is actually how they said Moses. So the person who believes in Moses is also dealing with that too. And he was more liberal than a lot of y'all are with allowing different belief systems to be in his presence and to be in his country, while keeping what he felt he was supposed to do and keeping those laws and traditions. So you can't talk about Mansa Musa without talking about Moses, because he's in his name. You can't talk about Mansa Musa without talking about his big brother, because his big brother is one of the people who keeps it real about what you need to know about Muhammad. You can't do it. That's why you can't interpret. Right? Interpretation is important, it's powerful, it's valuable. And people keep saying, I'm going to get rid of these things so I can keep saying that it's not real. Matter of fact, here's one of the things you couldn't see. When we were listening earlier to the whole Punch Bowl thing, those of you who've been on with us for a while, we were listening earlier to the guy describe the Punch Bowl, and he never said anything about what was there. He just said, oh, there were rumors that people died. Right? 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 When we were listening to that, one of the things that you didn't catch when he was saying there's rumors to it is you have to be honest about the fact that the person who introduced him was a black anchor, which means that the black anchor is, what do? They put somebody in front of you that says, see, they agree. And then he spoke, and then he gave it back to him. Set me up to go ahead and come on here. Right? Now, here's the weird part. Somebody says none of that stuff matters. Why are you bringing it up? I keep getting this over and over again. It's a victim mentality, blah, blah, right? It's nonsensical. It's ad hominem. And ad hominem usually shows that you have no apologetic reasoning whatsoever, right? And really shows Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Your ability to make up straw man, to have it to where people are literally gentrifying words and being complacent with nonsensical etymology, which really we can't even call etymology, et cetera, et cetera. If we just keep it a buck, are you not dealing with the same stuff today? Are you not dealing with the same stuff today? Like, let's keep it a buck. You keep saying that there's not enough black representation in Congress. Do you not know that there was more black representation in Congress in the 1800s than there is today? You keep telling me that the system's getting better. There was more back then. Do you not know that it wasn't until either 2021 or 2022, one of them, in the beginning of the year, I think it might have been 2021, but whenever, I think it's 2022, actually, now I think about it. It wasn't until then that the first president of the NAACP, I'm not talking about of a chapter, I'm talking about of all of the NAACP, the first black one just showed up. That means that the people who were supposed to advance colored people, you didn't have a colored person be over it until last year. But you keep saying this is ancient, right? It doesn't make sense to me that it's ancient, but it's still happening. Do you know that they still teach in nursing books? Not making this up, right? We got nurses on here. They can tell you if I'm lying. They still teach. Well, let me qualify it. Maybe not in every single one, I'm not 100% sure because I've not read every nursing book, right? But do you not know in nursing books they still teach that black women don't feel pain the same way that other women do? You said slavery's not a thing here anymore. Read the 13th Amendment. Come back and talk to me, right? You see, we're dealing with the same thing. People won't open up a book. If you want to hide the truth, just put it in a book. Just put it in law. Just put it somewhere written where you got to read it. People don't do that anymore. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, if you want to know if slavery is really a thing still, it's written in the books, right? They ain't even cook them. Even when they cook the books, there's still remnants of it. Even when they try to cook out the all the enzymes for you to be able to digest. If you go down to the bottom of the pole, that's why you used to sop it up. If you want the nutrients, just sop it up at the bottom of the pan and then you eat it. Come on. You hear what I'm saying? Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, you've been told that stuff that still happens doesn't matter, and they dressed it up in it happened a long time ago. Okay, your mama was born a long time ago. Can somebody put their hands on your mama? Let's take this and make it as practical as possible. Your mama was born a long time ago. Why are you still worried about your mama? She was born 50 years ago. Why you care? She was born 80 years ago. Why you worried? Don't you take more care of them the older they get? Let's just keep it a buck. Let's stop trying to make this something that doesn't make sense. Let's stop trying our best, right? To deny this stuff matters. Your mama old. Should I go ahead and make fun of her because she old now? Or are you gonna hit me in my mouth if I start saying your mama so this, your mama so that? Right? If I go back to In Living Color, your mama's so fat she jumped up in the air, got stuck, right? Your mama got a pig leg with a kickstand, right? If I start saying that stuff, right? if I say, if I say, if I say your mama's so dumb, they said it was gonna rain outside and she brought, or say this was gonna, that it was chilly outside and she brought out a bowl, right? Like you're gonna be a little upset with your boy, right? We're gonna have to scrap some because just because she older don't mean that you get to make fun of her. Why? Because you came out of her. You said that anyone that's alive do this the way the others. That's a great question. You know why that's a great question, Sister Megan? You know why that's a great question? Because the answer is yes. You know that chattel slavery exists to the point to where in the 60s and 70s, you can go look on a show on Netflix where there's a gentleman on there who speaks about his experience and his family. They were all chattel slaves still in the 60s and 70s because just because they got rid of it on paper, even though it was still allowed as long as you went to prisons. Remember, 13th Amendment allows for chattel slavery. So you might not know this, but if you go to a McDonald's, if you go to a Chick-fil-A, you go to these places, these fast food restaurants, all their clothes are made by slave labor, whether they be black, white, or somewhere in between. But there are actually physical people who lived as slaves. Yes. Yes. In the 1960s, 1970s. By the way, Megan, this is how great your question is to be able to open this up. You ready for this? Just last year in Georgia, not too far from where we did our meetup, y'all, I believe. But just last year in Georgia, you know that there were people who were still having people literally by gunpoint, having them do chattel slave work, and they found them and they had to free them. And you might think that's the only one that's there, but it's not, because there's a whole lot of land. See, let me help you with this too. You know, overpopulation of the world is a lie. It's a myth, right? Because I could take, let's say there's 8 billion people in America. I could take them and put them in like 4 counties in Florida. Did you know that? 8 billion people. Now I admit, and I'm gonna show you how this still works out, but I admit it'd be shoulder to shoulder at first. But if I took 3 to 4 counties in Florida, depending on which ones I chose, I could take all 8 billion people and put them in the same spot. Right? Then after that, I could take all 8 billion. You say, I don't like that. I could say, okay, well, how about I just give you the state of Florida? That means y'all wouldn't be shoulder to shoulder and you wouldn't always see another person, even with 8 billion people being around. But I say, you know what, though? I'll give you the East Coast now. 8 billion people that could be in 3 counties that I gave one state that they couldn't even see each other all the time. Now I give you a whole eastern seaboard from Maine and all the states from Maine all the way down to Florida. It's yours. You say that's still not enough. Well, what about it if I give you all of the United States of America, including Hawaii and Alaska? You know, in Alaska, like people don't see people for long periods of time. Right? 8 billion people. Right? But I can sit and say, you know what? I'll give y'all all North America. And then the rest, not only what you have in North America as far as the plants and the animals are yours, but you can only go outside of it if you're going hunting for something. If you're going hunting for something, you can leave and go to anywhere else in the world where there'll be abundance of food and water and all that stuff. But you guys got to stay in North America as far as to live. Did you know that? Right? Now watch this. Somebody says, like, why does that matter? How did you get that? How are you putting 2 and 2 together, this, that, or whatever? Right? I want you to see that they got you so messed up that you don't realize, see, because you think that it's only about what you see. You don't realize that there's that much space on Earth, that much space in the United States of America, right? There's that much space to where there are tons of places. We've traveled across the country as a family, right? There's so many places where nobody is. Do you know how easy it is to have slave places still? There's places they tell you not to go still because because there's people that have sundown towns and still try to make slaves and still are doing slavery, as far as, because even when you're talking about chattel slavery, you don't even recognize, like, what about people that have their organs removed? They keep them alive to remove organs until they die. You know people do that if they don't just outright take them all together. What about people who are sex trafficked? So you don't even think about that as chattel slavery, do you? Because once again, we have to dehumanize these people to say this stuff doesn't exist anymore. What about the people that fill the prisons that are on paper literally allowed to be treated as chattel slaves, are forced into servitude? And if they don't follow and do servitude, guess what? Then they have to do what? They have to be thrown into the hole or be punished, or they have to serve longer sentences until they start serving the massa. Right? And I see you, Shoshana. Yeah, I get that. But that's also one of the reasons why I'm not concerned about it. Because why would you want them to give you $24 trillion when your cash is already low anyways, and it don't have the value anyways? It doesn't have any gold or silver to back it up. We need to have inward reparations and do those things. You said Moses didn't ask for reparations, and we aren't either. Yahweh will provide. Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly, Minister Tamara. We're not looking for that. I'm not looking for you to take care of me. Watch this. I tried that already. I served your military. I voted for your presidents. I voted for your governors. I voted for your judges. I learned the law. I was obedient. I did the 9 to 5. I did 2 9 to 5s. I did 2 9 to 5s and a half. I did 2 9 to 5s and a half and was preaching. I did all that stuff. You said it's what's owed. Okay, but they can't pay you what they owe. They can't. And they won't, because once again, you got to become a people. If you're going to have your people have to become a people. In this system, you're not a people. If you're black, if you're black, colored, Negro, or African American, you're considered to be a fake person by law. So you got to become a people. If my people who were called by my name, right? If my people who are called, people don't look at this correct. This is law and case study. That's why they use this and hit you upside the head with it all day, because you don't know how to use it. 2 or 3 witnesses gathered together. Guess where that came from? Swearing on it. Guess where that came from? Right? Judge. Your judge is a priest. That's what they wear, a priestly robe. Guess where that came from? You in the middle of a biblical discussion and don't know how to use your words. But if my people who are called by my name, Sham there means authority. If I've authorized them to do this. Yeah, we already talked about Irish and this and that or whatever. And even people from Ireland don't like it when Irish Americans try to compare. But I've already said that if you were a lot of Irish people died with us, right? And lived with us. The Isle of Montserrat, I gave you something. So yes, we are already aware of that. Slavery to anybody, slavery upon anybody, slavery, used to control anybody. All of it's wrong. Okay, right? So we talked about that. I'm not trying to come against you. I'm just saying people, we're on for hours a day, right? So I promise you, we're talking about more than just, the stuff, but I appreciate it. I really do. I'm sorry. I'm forgive my humanity. I can see some of my irritation came out there. I did not mean it. Please forgive me for that. Right. Yeah. Right. And how you doing, Holla Joy? Did I say hello to you earlier? Or Holy Joy, Holla Joy? Right. So, and even Irish people, a lot of them don't want to admit that they were slaves because they want to just be indentured servants, even though we have history showing that y'all were slaves. But a lot of Irish people are like, please don't, because they don't want us. They really don't want us to like try and compare. Yeah, that's why I said earlier, free dairy, not Londonderry, right? Go over to Ireland. When you go over to North Ireland, that's not Irish territory. That's somebody living in Irish territory. They don't like that. And we should take note, especially because a lot of Irish poured lay down their lives for us. We don't want to talk about that. See, that's why I'm saying it's not a racism thing. I can't say, that's why I said I can't like go by your standard. See, our standard is pay us reparations and allow us to be Americans like you are, or whatever. No, like we're the original Americans, copper colored person indigenous to the Americas. That's this definition of the original American. It wasn't until somebody put on blackface, threw some tea over, and said we're the Americans, and now all of a sudden they changed the definition of an American. Oh, thank you, Juanetta. I appreciate you. Sounds like you are as well, right? And so, like, and by the way, if people are trying to call in or do whatever, I have to know who you are, or right? Looks like Zach Crizzy or something like that is trying. I at least need to know who you are, and we got to have a conversation because I'm not just going to allow anything to come on here. Um, yeah, but yeah, and I'm trying my best to answer as many questions, comments, and concerns as I can. So please forgive me. I'm a human being, right? We don't have as many as we had earlier today, a couple times, and yesterday, but it's still flowing in. But we need to be there and see. One of the things people don't want to talk about. See, once again, going back to, sorry, I got to rewind in my mind. Where am I at? Okay, going back to the trees. No. Sorry, the trees. Where are we at? Devil's Punch Bowl, Mississippi. Private property. Do you know that a lot of people don't even want to eat the peaches from anywhere that comes from there because black people were hung from those trees? The devil's in the details. There's another place. See, people think we just making stuff up. There's another place. We talked about Seneca Falls, and now you call it Central Park. And it was a place right next to Seneca Falls that they flooded, and now that city is underground. That used to be a place that we had as well. But we don't talk about. There's a place called, I think it's called Sugar Water Creek or Sugar Ditch or something like that. Sugar Water Creek. No, there's a place called Sugar Water Creek or something like that. Sugar Water River, Sugar Water Creek. Guess why they call it sugar water? Yeah, those trees are fertilized that we're talking about in Devil's Punch Bowl. They're fertilized by those people, right? But guess why they call it sugar water? Because people just let SHI, flow down it. And it tastes like too, because some people, when they throw it in the water, they also void their bowels. So when they ask people from there, why you call it sugar water when it basically tastes like SHI, and even dead bodies in there, they say, oh well, we don't want to call it S Water Creek, so we call it Sugar Water Creek. Right? Like the devil's in the details. We don't want to admit that we're in this place that's wrapped in this stuff, and we're not going to get out because of it. Right? Don't forget they call you, right, your brown skin, right? They call the place that you sit in up top the peanut gallery. They even refer to you in school sometimes. You didn't get the reference point. How you doing, Nani? Thanks for being on. You didn't get the reference point, but they say, oh yeah, the peanut gallery today. Right? Peanut gallery? Peanut gallery was where black people had to sit in the top of places because they weren't allowed to sit on the bottom, on the ground floor. That's why you still to this day pay more. Well, actually, no, nowadays they like some of the certain places. So they'll actually have you, if you get certain booths up top and stuff, they'll actually make you pay more. Like I remember as a child going to the Kennedy Center with my parents, and we would get some of the balcony play, and we thought we were really doing some stuff, right? And I didn't realize certain balcony spots are more expensive than others. But I think we got a couple times where we got those expensive balcony places, right? But it used to be you didn't want to be in the peanut gallery. You didn't want to be called the peanut gallery. The peanut gallery is where the slaves were. Right? The white gloves that you wear during the service. Why? Because black hands ain't supposed to touch a holy offering. And you put one hand behind your back when you take it. Why? Because you're not supposed to reach in and steal it. And when prayer happens, what do? You put your hands like this. Why? Because we need to see your hands. And they called you the N-word. Why? Because you were known as Negro, but also as Negus, Niger, Negus as well, which all are talking about royalty, kings and princes. Right? I'm just saying. How you doing, Melissa? I'm just saying. Like you gotta, we don't want to be honest. We don't want to be honest. We talked about that the other day. Mickey Mouse, black, white gloves. Minnie Mouse, black, white gloves. Goofy, black, white gloves. Pete, black, white gloves, right? But then we get to Donald, white, no gloves. And then somebody said, well, they have feathers. But the other ones have paws. They don't have hands either. They don't need gloves. They don't wear gloves in the wild, right? Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny acts like a black man, especially the original Bugs Bunny. What does he have? White gloves. And if his face ever blows up, what does it look like? Somebody eating watermelon with blackface. Yeah, that's why you put your hand. That's where that came from. Why do you put your hand in the air like this? And excuse it, because when you're in the peanut gallery up top and you start walking around, Master needs to see where his property going. You said that John Brown's son get killed in the Kansas wars. I think one of them did. I can't say all of them. I don't remember how all of them passed away. I'm pretty sure one of them, if not maybe two of them, got killed in the Kansas wars. One of them, at least, if not two of them, were at Harper's Ferry. So they couldn't have all died at the Kansas wars. But yeah. See? And so all I'm saying is the devil's in the details. Why do they omit those details? Why do they omit those details? See, watch this. People get mad at me. I'm not saying this means that a white person by colonial social construct, I'm not saying a white person ain't getting into heaven, but people get mad. You weren't mad when it was the opposite way. But now watch this. Revelation chapter 1, verse 14 and 15 describes the hair of the Most High, describes the skin of the Most High. He had hair like wool, right? And his feet were not the color of just brass, which some people try to hit you with. It says it was the color of brass as if it was burnt in the furnace. Go look up YouTube videos of what we've shown this before on here, right? Go look up YouTube videos of what feet burnt in the furnace looks like, or what brass, that's burnt in the furnace. We showed a video of somebody taking a brass bullet casing, right, the shell, and burning it. And we saw the picture of what it looked like. It looks darker than this. Okay. It looks darker than this. Okay. So why is somebody upset when I point that out? Here we go again. Start working towards the future. How do you solve a future problem how do you have a solution without a problem? Obviously, you don't care, right? It's obvious you don't care. How do you solve a problem? Or how do you solve a problem without a problem? Come up with solutions. Okay, what's the problem? When people come to me for marriage coaching, that's what I don't do. I don't say, well, why y'all coming to me and you have no solutions? That's right. I was about to use a word I shouldn't use. That is not correct thought process. How about that? If somebody comes to me on a one-on-one coaching session and says, I'm depressed, I don't go, you know what, man, get over it. Stop being the victim. If somebody comes to you and says that they've been raped or fondled or misused or abused or mentally or spiritually, even emotionally abused as well, you don't go like, hey, get over it. Right? Right? And you definitely don't do it if you haven't dealt with the trauma. You guys get upset when people who are dealing with generations of trauma are finally starting to say we should talk it out. And if you are the saviors that you claim to be, if you are the victors that you claim to be, then realize that victors don't exist without victims. And if you want to get rid of a victim mentality, you got to get rid of a victor mentality. Because until the victor mentality goes away and you stop saying hail to the victors, right, then you won't get rid of victims. Because as much as you're hailing yourself, right, you keep impaling your own society, at least what you say is your society. You get mad when somebody omits the details. Somebody says they don't believe in Jesus. You get upset, but Jesus is half man, half Zeus, and there was no letter J, which means it wasn't even Jesus. It was Yeses or Yesu. Right? Let's move on to the future without taking care of the past. That doesn't make sense. That's why your society doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of people that said, I'm done, I'm out. I'm checking out, I'm gone. Thank you for the love, appreciate it. I'm out. You guys been saying for the longest time, go ahead, leave. You don't need to be here. This place is so great. See, this place is so great that people want to leave. This place is so great that you don't want people to stay. You don't even realize what you're saying. You don't know the culture that you speak from. You don't know the cognitive dissonance in we're so great at how we treat others that we kick you out when you question anything. You said you're not mad, you're not angry, your family wasn't here? Sure. Okay. My family existed before I was born. If your family only exists today, then that's fine. I see, but that's because your 14th Amendment citizenship in your mind. It matters more where you are than who you are. It matters more where you're from than who you're from. Right? Here we go again. My grandmother, right? If my grandmother dealt with rape and somebody said your grandmother dealt with rape, I don't go, that's not who I am. Now, you might do that for your grandmother, and that's totally up to you. We have different cultures. Yeah, I comprehend that a lot of people don't even know what it is to deal with Mesopotamian aspects of the Bible and don't comprehend Aleph Bet that came before alphabet and all that. So if you're going to talk about that, that's coming from usually people that aren't schooled in certain things, but that's okay, right? But once again, see, you don't even want to hear what I'm saying. We're so quick to be like, I got to denounce what you're saying that you aren't hearing it, right? Like if my grandmother deals with rape and somebody tells me about her rape, I don't go, that's not who I am. I wasn't born then. Why don't you want to deal with that? Why don't you want to be honest about that? You see what I'm saying? Like that's been if my grandmother tells me, right? Let me get off my grandmother. I've had a family member who was a teacher in West Virginia and used to go through West Virginia all the time and would try to walk miles to be able to get to where she would teach the children, right? And when she would try to get there, some days she would get raped. Sorry for using such traumatic words. I won't do it anymore. Sorry, trigger warning, right? But she would that would happen to her. She would get abused on the way there and would still have to make a decision, especially because they didn't have cars and phones and stuff like that. Am I going to walk back there? Am I going to stay here? Am I going to teach? Am I going to let the children know what happened? Or am I going to teach them? And so a lot of times she got used to people abusing her so she could teach the next generation. You say you weren't born then, so it doesn't matter. For me, I say, right? For me, I say no. That's you don't have to worry about that no more. I'm gonna deal with that. I'm gonna make sure that I protect somebody. You taught me so that and went through that so I don't have to go through that. I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna say it's not there. I'm not gonna say you had to find a way to deal with abusive situations in your mind. You had to be able to become abused. You had to live with an abnormal life because you were abnormally used. That's what abuse is. You had to live an abnormal life. But now that I realize that's what happened, and that's why you treated, and that's why you flaked out on your husband, and that's why you might have not taught your children correctly. And that's why at the end you finally were able to get enough peace to start worshiping correctly and praying and doing things like that. But it took you a while, it took you a minute, but you had to be so locked in because you realized you had to teach the next generation. So because of that, hey, rest up. That's on us now. Exactly, because the trauma doesn't stop. See, here's a more practical example for some of you. I haven't given this one in a while, right? There was a husband and a wife. They were a husband and a wife. They were together. Everything was great. They were in love. But there was this weird thing that kept happening. He would see his wife. She would prepare chicken for them. But whenever she made the chicken, she would always cut it in half before she put it in the oven. Now, although it worked, the chicken tasted great and everything, he was just a little weirded out by this because he'd never seen anybody cut chicken in half before they put it in the oven. Every time. So he asked her one day, babe, when you put that chicken in the oven, why do you cut it in half every time? How you doing, Takwa? Right? Why do you cut the chicken in half every time before you put it in the oven? Why do you cut the chicken in half every time before you put it in the oven? She says, I don't know. She says, my mama used to do it. Okay. So he says, all right. They're sitting there one day. They get together for, I don't know. They get together for a family get together. It's summer break. He said he sees her mom. He sees they cutting it in half before they put it in the oven. He says, hey, mama, love you and everything. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry. I got to get straight to the point. Why is it that you cut the chicken in half? I asked your daughter why she cuts the chicken in half. She said she doesn't know. She said she did it because you do it. So why do you cut the chicken in half before you put it in the oven? She said, I don't know. She said, I got it from my mama, right? Well, praise Yah. They were in a situation to where, grandmama was still around, right? Big mama was still around, no problem. Thank you for the love. Big mama was still around, no problem. So he said, okay, they got to Thanksgiving. He said, big mama, I got a question for you. I know y'all about to go in the kitchen. I'm not allowed in there while y'all doing y'all thing. I'm gonna go watch the game. But just quick question for you, real quick. I asked your granddaughter why she cuts the chicken in half before she puts it in the oven. And she couldn't tell me, right? And she said it was because your daughter did it. I asked your daughter. She said she couldn't tell me. It was because you did it. And so you're here. Do you know why you cut the chicken in half, put it in the oven? She said, baby, I don't know. It's because my mama did it. But they were so blessed that Medea was still around. Mother Dearest was still around. And so they asked Medea, right? He finally gets it. He says, look, Medea, look, something about to happen to where my daughter going to start cutting chicken in half. She going to go in the kitchen with y'all this Christmas. It's going to be the first time that she cuts chicken in half. And before she starts cutting the chicken in half, I know there ain't nothing wrong about it. It's just bothering me that, like, I asked her mama why she did it and she don't know. I asked your granddaughter why she did it. She said she don't know. I asked your daughter why she do it. She said she don't know. Medea, please, can you tell me why it is that you cut the chicken in half before you put it in the oven? And she said, baby, it's because back in the day, ovens were small. So you couldn't fit a chicken in there unless you cut it up. Right? All that. Because back then, baby, it was small. So there are still things that we keep. Thank you, Yasan. I appreciate you. There are still things that we keep doing, not because it's even necessary anymore, but because we had to do it. That's what trauma does. A lot of you are, watch this, you're whipping your children. Why do you whip your children and not discipline your children? I'm not saying you shouldn't, that you have to spare the rod, but why do you have to whip them? Why do you still say, go out there and braid up some limbs, get that switch? I want to hear it go. And as your child is coming back, y'all been there. Some of y'all have gotten these whippings, and you be sitting up there coming back, and you crying as you hear the, because you know that's about to hit your behind. And you traumatized. You were picking out something to cause your own trauma because somebody is only whipping you because they love you. You said cutting the chicken wasn't trauma. That's why I said that's how trauma operates. But thank you again for trying to just depreciate whatever I said. Nevertheless, right? People are carrying things. I appreciate you. But you appreciate me and value when you literally don't even listen to what I said. But people don't recognize this, right? They don't see. They don't have the mentality that we are here to discipline, to cut each other up, to keep causing trauma. Somebody legit just said, this is the issue that we have, is that we're doing something that we don't have to carry anymore. And the first person said, that's not trauma. You're so traumatized. You're so traumatized that you missed what you did. That's why we have to pray even for our enemies. They're traumatized too, y'all. Do you not know that the person that calls themselves white doesn't know that white was never a color until somebody told you it was? They got traumatized too. Do you know that the white overseer lived in the same condition as the black slave did? sometimes worse. But because they got to whip the black slave and they got to be called white, they thought they were better, but they were nothing more than a house Negro who lived the same way the slave Negro did. At least the house Negro lived in the house. The overseer lived outside with the slaves in a slave house that oftentimes looked the same exact way and didn't do work. The slaves always did work, which meant they didn't even know how to keep up their own house. It was always jacked up and dirty, and it needed to be patched up and stuff. They didn't even know how to do that stuff. But they were white. They got to ride the horse, and they got to represent massa. But they were nothing more than a house Negro. And the house Negro, he would fight harder to put the blaze out of the master's house than the master would himself. Why would he do that, y'all? Because the house Negro, all he had was the house. If the house burned down, at least the slave master and the overseers, they were still white. So they still were okay. But the house Negro thought he was better than the slave Negro. And when the house caught on fire, he better make sure he saves it, or else he's going to be just like every other Negro. Matter of fact, he'll be worse off because now he ain't got nothing that makes him different. You hear that? And still today, people are still caping up for Massa. Massa Biden, yes, sir, boss. Massa Trump, yes, sir, boss. Massa Obama, I soft shoot. That's what we still doing. You said race is a social construct. Yeah, race is a social, it's not only a social, it's a colonial construct. So why are you talking about the past when it's over? Okay, well, when you tell me that the prison, the pipelines stuff is done, when the 13th Amendment is done, then we'll start talking about it's finished. But 13th Amendment still exists. So if the 13th Amendment still exists, chattel slavery still exists, which means that it's not over. And if people just got arrested in Georgia for having a plantation out there and still having colored people be their slaves, right? That we're still dealing with the same thing, right? If you just had the first president of the NAACP be black last year, then you're still dealing with the same thing. If you're still dealing with people that are saying it's in the past and it doesn't matter, but they want you to go ahead and celebrate July 4th, and they want you to celebrate Memorial Day, and they want you to celebrate the Valentine's Day, and they want you to celebrate Christmas, and they want you to celebrate Thanksgiving. And, oh, by the way, a lot of those are like fake holidays too, because Thanksgiving, even by Eurocentric standards, is supposed to be a day of fasting. So if you want to keep going by those things, but you say somebody can't bring up the past, then not only are you a hypocrite, but you're basically trying to lie. Now, you were taught to do that. You were taught to do that. I get it, but you ain't. But you see what I'm saying? You said so primitive a concept. It's not primitive. The primitive part is when we don't love each other, according to no matter what. I love my wife's skin color. It's part of what I love about her. Right? She's not as dark as me, but I have love for brothers who are dark, much darker than I, and I have love for Irish people who do not look like I. Right? You see what I'm saying? That's the primitive part. It shouldn't matter. But the fact that it shouldn't matter when it comes to loving somebody. Why is the only way you can love somebody is if you're colorblind? Why do you have to not see something about the person you love in order to love them? That in and of yourself should cause pause. Right? If you're a brother with skin that is less melanated than mine, but you love me as a brother, then I love you, including your less melanated skin. Why has it got to be, I don't have to see that he's white, so now I can love him? That doesn't make sense. That means you can't love a part of him. I'll love you except for that part. Now, I get that we love the sinner and not the sin, but to love the sinner means to love the parts of the sinner. Also, though, watch this. I'm not so oblivious. See, watch this. You wouldn't say something like, hey, I love that person or whatever, and so I'm gonna let them bleed. I dismiss the bleeding part of them. I'm not gonna wrap it up in a bandage. If I see red coming out of your shoulder, I might say, bruh, your shoulder's bleeding, because I'm not colorblind. Right? But people have to say it's because you come out of a culture where people used to say people that had color were hated. So now you still in the sense are saying I'm going to hate the color. You know, the word hate is the opposite of love, right? So we're just dealing with really basic etymology, just surface level. If love is action, then hate is the opposite of action. If hate is the opposite of love is action, hate is inaction. Therefore, it's gone from I'm going to outright show action or love towards dismissing somebody, to now I'm going to say, I'll dismiss them by ignoring who they are. Sure, you believe that no man should be judged by his skin color, but by the content of his character. That sounds great. So that means that we shouldn't judge them. I didn't say judge them because of their skin color, did I? I said I can look at somebody and say, man, you know what? I really love you, bro. Man, your skin is popping today. See, you're so busy trying to ignore it. You got to ask yourself, why do you have to ignore something to love somebody? I didn't say judge them because of this. I said love them. Watch this. If I see somebody who is, by colonial construct, white, right? By that social construct, if I see a white person and I see certain things going on with their hair that looks different than mine, guess what? I might say their hair looks great or doesn't look great according to what should be coming out of their head, right? What makes my wife's hair look great is not going to be the same thing that makes like a white woman's hair look great necessarily by that colonial construct. But it doesn't mean both of their hair can't look great. My wife's is always going to look better to me, of course, because that's my baby, that's my wife. But I'm just saying, right? That's my wife. She's above any other woman that's ever existed. But I'm just telling you, they both can have beautiful hair based on what's coming out their scalp. Why is it that you're so quick to try and use equality? See, once again, this is something that you don't want to hear. But even in this canon, there is no such thing as equality. Don't get upset. Don't get mad. I know you were taught that equality is a real thing, but there's no two people that have ever been equal. So you got to love the differences. Isn't that right? I know you were taught that. See, my wife and I are not equal. She's better at things than I am. And I'm better at things than she is. And she's worse at things than I am, and I'm worse in some things than she is. So guess what? We use our differences, we use a yoke of marriage to be able to make sure that we stay with each other so that whatever she can't carry, I can carry. Whatever I can't carry, she can carry. And now our non-equal status has made us work together as one. See, you get with people you're trying to get with people equal to you, but whenever you look for equality, guess what there's always going to be? There's going to be holes. Because if you're the exact same, it means whatever your issues are, it's their issues. Whatever your strengths are, it's their strengths. Whatever your weaknesses are, they're your weaknesses too. Yeah, everybody's created, but not everybody's even adopted into being the Most High's child, according to your Bible. Your Bible. Read your Bible. It'll bless you. Thank you for the love. Read your Bible. It'll bless you. It tells you. Romans chapter 8, verse 18, the suffering of this present time is not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed. But what does verse 19 say right behind it, which we omit? It says specifically that the creature is waiting on the manifestation of the sons of Elohim. Means that not everybody is the Most High's child, but everybody's created. You have to be adopted into position. Even if you're in a family, you have to be adopted into position. Just because you're the first child doesn't mean I'm going to automatically trust you with my will. You got to prove yourself worthy of that. Thank you for the love again. You got to prove yourself, but you don't want to hear that because you're so busy going off of myths. Equality is mythical. It is mythology. To look for somebody to be equal to you is to study something that is not true. It is a waste of your time to try and be equal to somebody else. And that's the issue that people have when you start telling the truth. I don't need you to tell me blah, 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 blah. I need the Most High. I need my wife. I need my people. I need anybody who's like-minded. Now that we got that, that's the recipe. Let's get that together. If that means that I'm only 0.2% of the population of the United States of America, I could care less. I don't need them to survive. Right? That's the mindset that you got to start carrying. The devil's supposed to be in the details, but he's been taken out because you omit details. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Jared Clark? Hedda Clark? I'm not sure, but thank you. Right? The devil's in the details, but you keep omitting the details. And every detail you omit, you give more and more space to the devil. You don't want to hear that person talking about Jesus this and Jesus that, but you keep omitting details, and every detail you omit, the devil's like, ooh, see, watch this. This is, once again, right? Let's go back to military standards and details, right? What details are made for. You make details to give them specific information so that they can go out and make sure that they cover what they need to cover, right? Here's the issue, is that every time I omit a detail, imagine there's a huge fence, right? We've got the land already and everything. We're protecting the food that we're growing on, all that stuff, right? But somebody comes to me and says, hey, there's a hole in the fence over there. If we don't want people to come in and start stealing our crop, we might want to go ahead and fix that, right? And so I go over, right? And I go over there. Yeah, I know about that spot over there with the little bowl and stuff in it. Yeah, right? So I go over. So if I go over there, right, and I don't fix the detail, I don't fix the hole, or I just go, we'll just patch it up with something real quick. The longer that detail is there, somebody can come in and out of that detail. Now imagine there's multiple holes over acres of land that are supposed to be fenced out. You know, nobody's supposed to be able to get in. There's supposed to be an electric fence somehow, some way, like the electricity is not working in one area. Now we got wolves coming in and out. Now all of a sudden, people getting attacked because we didn't make sure we took care of a detail. Nobody wants to deal with the details. So the devil keeps coming in and creeping in. So stop calling yourself a shepherd. Somebody that your people, your family is supposed to be able to be protected by and led to green pastures and by the still and led to the still waters, right? And having your soul, your psychology, your nachavash even restored. Stop talking about that. You're not a shepherd if you won't deal with the details. If you omit details, you cannot be somebody that we look up to. Oh, thank you for that. We hit 100,000 likes. I'm on, right? Stop telling people that you're into the details when you're clearly not. Or stop telling people that you want them to be secure, but you don't set up details. You don't secure and fasten details. You don't keep commandments. You let details go. Stop telling me what you're about. Right? You're not trying to make sure that you do that you have this stuff in place, that people are going to become better. Right? You're not trying to get people to come out of camps. Not talking about our camps necessarily, but you know, some of our camps act like those too. You're not trying to be a military organization assigning a detail to perform a specific task, mission, or operation. The leadership identifying the need, picking specific individuals that can fill it, and assign leaders to oversee it. Then the detail moves out. You keep moving out, but you haven't taken care of the details. Yeah, just like a slave Bible, or just like a lot of your regular Bibles. How many of your regular Bibles even have an apocrypha in it? But the Roman Catholic Church has an apocrypha. How many of y'all talk about the 10 Commandments, but the Roman Catholic Church jacked up the 10 Commandments because they don't want to keep the Sabbath holy? I mean, I'm just saying, you keep omitting details, and after a while, the devil keeps getting in. So demonic influence keeps getting in. I said this yesterday when we were talking about the whole unholy thing. Everybody, LGBTQ plus, and I'm standing up, and you must hate Sam Smith, and you hate Kim Petras, and you hate this, and you hate that, and it's like, they're wearing devil horns. Thank you for the love, by the way. They're wearing devil horns. That's what I'm trying to get across to you. Like, wake up for a second. I don't have a heaven or hell to put them in. I'm trying to get you to see they're wearing devil horns. They're bowing down to them during the performance, right? They had Madonna there who was doing the like a virgin thing and lost her virginity in front of y'all. Out there with a whip, dressed in holy robes up until she shows her legs and stuff like that. Like, they have her stripping and things like that. They're telling your children this is okay. Like, at a certain point, look for the devil in the details. Stop being so blinded and jacked up, right? Stop thinking that you can't. They've got you that manipulated where you can't see the devil horns on the person. You want to love the person, fine. Don't love the devil horns on the person. You hear what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to get you to see. Like, you're so busy caping up for the United States corporation that you're not willing to talk about the fact that you still have slave owners on your money. You don't care about freedom if you spend slave owners. Do you hear what I'm saying? You can't trade. You said, oh, it's just satire. Geez, I'm out. Okay, go. Thank you for being on, but go. If one thing can get you to say that everything else I'm said is done and I'm a liar. Like I'm not here to get 100% of your validation, you know. Sorry to say it that way, but I mean sometimes, hey, like go ahead and go. I mean, right? Like I need you to comprehend. Like people aren't mad. Thank you for the love. People aren't mad at you. They're mad at the fact that you've been bringing out truth. You gotta agree with everything I say. That's a bad spot to be. I've got to make sure that I teach, but only what you know. I want you to think about this now. I want to teach you, but only what you know. And even when it talks about the Boer people, see, people didn't even know what I was talking about earlier. When we talk about 1901, 1902, they don't tell you about the fact that there were like 28,000 Africans that they found. So anybody else that was black, they said, we're going to wrap all y'all up too. And we're going to go ahead and kill y'all in concentration camps too, even if you weren't even involved in the war, because, you know, all of them look alike. Here's another thing you don't comprehend when it comes to psychology. Yeah, I see you, Savvy J. You're right. And how you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Maya. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, a biologist by degree. And so thankful and grateful to have you on, Dave. I appreciate you. You're so busy. Hear what I'm saying? You're so busy being like, it's just satire. Do you know that your psychology, your brain, your mind, right? It doesn't understand jokes. Even when we make jokes, like your brain ultimately, like it doesn't really understand. That's why you like certain comedians better than others, because certain comedians will make sure that they find a way to spin it to a positive fashion no matter what, right? You like certain comedians because your brain doesn't comprehend. Your brain only knows what you give it. Your mind comprehends stuff, but your brain doesn't necessarily comprehend. What'd you say? Are you drinking from the stream on your knees, or do you bring the water up with your hand? I mean, right? And it's difficult to deal with a lot of people because a lot of people drink from the stream. They had to bend down without seeing. I like that, right? And what did Gideon do? He only fought with 300 of them brothers. They had a whole army of thousands. The Most High said, you got too many people trying to fight this fight. That's a great word. We're going to stay right there. Thank you, Sister Bree, right? He said, you got too many people trying to fight. You got too many belief systems. You got too much. He said, look, take these people to the water. First of all, he said, first of all, ask everybody. You got everybody who's wearing the armor, right? Everybody saying they're ready to do. Everybody says they're Israel. Everybody says they black. Everybody says they're more. Everybody says that we're a human being. Everybody says this. He says, first things first, ask everybody, because you're about to fight something where the numbers look like they're too substantial. There's too much substance to it for you to be able to do anything. Right? They're too substantial for you to have any value of thinking that what you winning is a substantial mindset, right? So he says, ask everybody, first of all, do they even want to fight? Right? He said, first thing first, ask them if they even really, are they really about this life? Because I'm about to find out, basically, right? Like I'm about to find out for real. Are they really about this life? Like, let's find out for sure. So he said, just ask them first. He said, just let them know, look, we all know what it is. He said, ask them if they're ready to do what it takes. And a whole bunch of them left. I can't remember the number, forgive me. I think it was, off my memory, I believe it was about 3,000 or so. I could be wrong, right? But there's only a few of them left, right? In comparison to what they had. Then Gideon's like, ooh, this is even worse, but I guess we're going to work with this, right? Yahweh says, nope. He says, I need another test. He said, take them to the stream. He said, and have them drink water. But this is what you're going to do. He said, when they're drinking the water, I want you to watch them. And if the water is coming up from their hands, right? Or I'm sorry, if they're going down all the way to drink the water, face first, plunged in there, right? Putting their mouth in the water. He said, you don't want them. He said, but if they start cupping the water and they start looking around, right? They're drinking, but they're looking to see what's coming up, right? He said, then that's who you want. If they like dogs and they just put their face right in the water, they don't need to see even what they're drinking, let alone see what's around them. He said, I don't need people that are so thirsty that they can't think right. See, some people are so thirsty. You can be thirsty for change, but can't think right. That's a bar right there. Thank you, Holy Spirit, right? You could be so thirsty for something that feeds you, you're right, that you don't pay attention while you're getting what it is. So when all you're getting, you get no understanding. It's not filling you up. It's not doing, but you drinking though. But a bear could attack you. Somebody could shoot you with an arrow, right? There might be a ship coming down, but you so thirsty, you just got your head dug in, right? But you're not taking time out. Let me make sure that I'm actually paying attention. See, some of you are so thirsty for change. I'm not saying the people that are coming on here that are against us don't want change. They could be so thirsty for change that they're not looking at what's coming. I'm gonna go a little bit over time today, but my family, we're supposed to be doing something today, and I want to check on some stuff with my family as well, as far as how they feeling and stuff. So, but we'll go a little bit over, right? Thank you, Holy Spirit, for the direction. So we're almost about ready to take our lead. But see, some people, yeah, survival instincts, right? But immaturity met up with survival instincts could be wrong. That's why we got to train up children. See, my son can be so hungry at times because we out there, we playing with this and that. And look, he trying to keep up with dad and stuff. So we doing this, we on the court, we playing, we swimming, we doing this, we doing that. And then by the time it's time for him to get something that's going to bless him, right? If I'm not careful and I'm treating him like myself, what happens? He can't keep up. So he's so hungry now that he can't even eat what it is that he just got. That's one of the best things that you could buy for his body. But he's so hungry, he can't even eat it. He's reverting back to his default. His default is, man, just give me something that I like. And he even likes what it is that he was given, but he's not in the mindset of it because he's so hungry. See, that's why we got to mature. A lot of us are in immaturity. It's like the baby I was talking about the other day, where mamas have had this to where your baby is so hungry that they can't even breastfeed. Right now, a lot of men wouldn't comprehend this, and a lot of sisters who've never breastfed might not comprehend this, but it's something that happens quite often, doesn't it, sisters? Right? I won't say quite often, but it's something that happens too often. Let's say it like that, right? Where you got a baby that's so hungry, and thank you for the love, by the way. You got a baby so hungry, and they cried so long, and you couldn't just get to them fast enough, or you had to get something done or whatever. And so now, baby is crying. Yeah, like never go shopping while you hungry, for real, right? And the baby's crying. You can even have the position that can be off, the baby. And then what happens? Now you start being in pain and you starting to swell up. And now you waiting. You can't wait for relief. Now you crying because the baby crying. The baby got out of position. You got out of position. Both of you are ready to relieve each other, but can't do it because both of you are now crying. And now here come daddy coming back home. And you like, I understand why the baby cried. You know what I'm saying? But you're like, why are you crying? Because we don't know, because we don't know what's going on, right? But it's like, but you don't, but you hear, yeah. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain in that situation. There's a lot of pain going on though, and so you got people who are walking in on your situation who are like, I can understand why you talking about what happened in the past, but why you talking about? I'm sorry, I can understand what happened to them in the past, but why aren't you talking? Why are you talking about it? Right? It's because we're connected. If my ancestors are crying about it, then I'm crying about it. That's love. Ooh. A lot of y'all don't have natural affection. That's 2 Timothy chapter 3. Right? You're not mature enough to give natural affection, the affection that nature gives. As much as y'all always talk about survival of the fittest and stuff like that, there are male tigers that we've seen that when the mother dies, they take care of the children. They can't give them milk, but they can give them food. They can give them protection. They even should mate with other tigers or another tiger or a tigress, and they don't because they're like, yo, I gotta take care of my children or my cubs. Yeah, epigenetics, pain stored generationally in genes. Yeah, somebody had mentioned epigenetics earlier, by the way. I apologize. I just realized I didn't get back to you. But yeah, baby, epigenetics, right? We don't even think about that. DNA memory. Do you know some of the tears that you cry are not even your tears? But people tell you, don't worry about it. But they don't even know how epigenetics works. Some of the tears you cry are not even yours. Some of the prayers you pray are not even yours, right? I can only mention this. It's hard for me to deal with this in live sessions because this is very questionable to a lot of people. And some of y'all think I'm doing something when I speak like this that is what would you call it? You would call it I don't know, heresy, even though heresy really is when somebody's trying to like attack the nation and pull the nation apart. But you would say that I'm speaking heresy or blasphemy. But do you not know that when you pray to an eternal source? So hear what I'm about to say. When you pray to an eternal source, which means that you do not just pray for your present, and you do not just pray for tomorrow, but you also pray for what happened yesterday. That's hard. That's hard to deal with. It's hard to deal with, right? I'm not saying that I believe in some of the stuff people believe in, but hear what I'm saying. If you believe that prayer is eternal, or you pray to somebody that's eternal, are you not praying to somebody who lives in yesterday, today, and tomorrow at the same time? So here's one of the things we didn't talk that much about today, but let's just put it all the way out there. Let's just put it all the way out there. How do I correct something that's been in the past, that's in the present, and that's going to be tomorrow without prayer? You say prayer changes things. You ain't seeing no change. I got to start asking myself, do we comprehend prayer? We've talked about prayer on the live quite a bit. And remember, prayer is prayer is a petition. What is a petition? A petition is a request, a demand, or a request, a demand, or something else. I'm forgetting something else right now. But it's a request, a demand, or I can't remember the other one, a question, something like that. A request, a demand, or something that is made upon a government based off of your constitutional rights, right? This is your constitution. If I don't live by the things of the past, how can I pray in the present for change tomorrow if I'm just going to repeat the sins of the past, praying where my prayers don't go any higher than the ceiling, and therefore asking for something different, but I get nothing else? Prayer is petition. It's a request or a demand made on a government by constitutional right, right? You hear what I'm saying? So why are we dealing in generational curses? See, now watch this. Pray without ceasing. You think that prayer is only verbal, and that's why people hear me say stuff. But that's why I also say it. There's actions that go with it. I'm not looking for everybody to agree with me. There's actions that go with this thing. Faith without works is dead. A lot of y'all got faith and no works. Some of y'all got works and no faith. So you give up. You start working something up. It didn't work in 2 weeks. I'm out. You got works, but no faith. Some of you got faith, but no works. I'm believing it's going to happen. I'm believing it. And you keep doing the same stuff, believing that something new is going to happen, trying to take new wine and put it in old wineskin. You got to have both. Problem is we don't know the works. And we keep getting the same result because we don't know the works, or we won't look at the works of our fathers, the works of our fathers that didn't work, the works of our fathers that did work. We don't even like to be in our work. Thank you. It's a demand, request. Yeah. Request. It's a demand, a request. What was the other one now? Oh, it's a request, a demand, or an appeal. That's what it is. It's a request, a demand, or appeal to our government based upon our constitution. Now, your government is a kingdom. Why do you know more about democracy than about kingdom? And why don't you even know that democracy is not even real because it's not written in the constitution you say you follow? Do you know it's possible for you to pray about something that's happened in the past so that you can feel more confident in the future? This is eternal. This is eternity. And I wish I could go deeper, but some of y'all would start looking at me crazy if I really started going into this. Like the next time I get an early riser Bible study session, I'll pray about it. We'll see how the Holy Spirit leads. I'd like to really take some time out just to deal with prayer and a manner that a lot of us don't even think about because it's eternal. But a lot of people would just, oh, here it is, and blah, blah, and he doesn't know this, and he's a heretic. It's like, no, you don't comprehend eternity. You don't comprehend eternity. Do you know that being in debt to the wrong person is the reason why you're a slave? It's an eternal principle. You can't talk sovereignty without spirituality, right? Text me if you don't have the link. You should have a link that's sent to it because I think I have your email. But if I don't, just text me, remind me. Yasamanda, we'll get it together and make sure that you have that link, right? I don't know. I don't even know I don't think I'm up this Monday, anyways. But look. It's difficult to talk about a lot of this stuff because we don't comprehend that eternity is real. There's no sovereignty without spirituality, y'all. Like there's an eternal law. Anybody who is in debt eternally to the Most High, He is the one who said, "I purchased your freedom." You see how that works? You still have a debt. The wages of sin is death, but cancel that out, right? Remember the verse right before it, Romans 6:22, is that you are free, right? But don't forget the wages of sin is death, but the gift of Elohim is eternal life. So the wages of sin is death, right? You're supposed to be free. The wages of sin is death. How do you put that together? Oh, well, but the gift of Elohim is eternal life, an eternal mindset. I was in debt. There was a bill of exchange that went through. Some of y'all don't even know this terminology, exactly what these things mean, but there was a bill of exchange that went through where I should have had the debt on me, but somebody exchanged that debt with me for eternal life. They said, put it on me. I bought the debt from where it deserved, right? Your debt should have been leading you to hell. I went down there. I exchanged myself for you. I already paid the original company. It's a bill of exchange, right? We did our negotiable instrument stuff. I already said, hey, look, I'm gonna do it. And now I'm gonna go ahead and call you, just like a creditor does. I'm gonna call you. The word call, kletos, it means to be invited. Phone means voice or phone. Phone in the Greek, phone in the Greek, it means voice. So a phone call is invited to a voice. So I called you out of darkness. I invited you to follow my voice into the marvelous light. And if you did that, once you came over here, I've already exchanged the debt. I own your debt. Now, if you'll go ahead and be what they call a slave to me, I will no longer call you servant. I will call you friend. You get to be a king just like I am. You get to be royalty just like I am. Right? But somebody has to pay your debt. If you don't have the money, if you don't have the eternity, if you don't have license over eternity, if you don't have eternal time without end, right? If you're going to die and be in hell, then there's certain things you have no right to even ask for. But because I went ahead and exchanged that, I now have the opportunity. And if you would just simply make me your Lord, I'm going to make you ruler over many. Show me that you can do it over a few, and I'll make you ruler over many, including many years, because you will not have a time that you'll die with your glorified body that's coming. You see how it's an eternal principle. Debt. Anything you're in debt to, you're a slave to. Anything you're a slave to, you're in debt. So if you're in debt to something that has to cause you to be in hell, and guess what? Sha'al or hell is not just a place that's going, or Sheol, some people say. It's not a place that's just going to pop up after you die. Sha'al is a place that's real right now. Some of y'all living in hell right now. But somebody said, I'll exchange that. This is why we need community. You going through hell and don't have anybody to exchange that. Hey, sis, don't worry about it. Us brothers, we'll take care of that. Right? That's the goal. When we're saying, hey, pick up the phone, be ready for this, be ready for that. Boom, 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 woo, woo, woo. Right? When we call you, when we say we're going to meet up, like, come together. Let's start making sure our children meet each other. Let's start making sure we sewing into each other. Bring your business stuff. When next time we do a meetup, make sure if you got medicine, make sure if you sell cloths, make sure if you sell clothes, make sure you sell. We got to make sure we come together. Make sure you bring your t-shirts. Make sure so we can all, even if we don't exchange the money, like, yo, oh for real? Oh, word? You got that medicine? Well, I'll give you a couple shirts. You give me a couple of the medicines. Exchange. It's an eternal principle. Right? We don't recognize it. Somebody coming, yo, man, I got a bunch of seeds. Oh, for real? You got seeds like that? But for sure, I can get you some medicine, because if I can grow that for myself, now I can make my own medicine without having to go forage all the time. I can just make my own medicine from what I'm gonna grow this year, my crop. Oh, for real? We got people all the way up in Rhode Island, all the way down to the East Coast, all the way down to Florida. Shouldn't be nobody on this whole side, if that's where you are with us, or if you in the Midwest, or if you in the upper Midwest, if you in Texas or whatever. We got so many people spread. If you in Cali, if you in Las Vegas, if you in Oregon, if you in Washington State, if you in Washington DC, if you in wherever you are, there's not a place that we shouldn't be able to get something and have somebody meet up somewhere to be able to say, yo, here's some food for you. If all of us said we'll grow food, there's no way. that somebody in here is not going to be able to eat off of something that's yours that you're going to plant somewhere, whether you plant it in your house. And I showed y'all how you can put it in your house or your apartments or whatever. And my son and I, we're going to work towards when this last frost hit, we're going to start putting this stuff outside. I already showed you we still got the compost heap ready to go. And we still got lemon trees and stuff like that, little baby ones around here, things that are getting bigger each year. It don't take that much. Yeah, a barter system. It don't take that much. It doesn't have to cost you that much. It costs you gas in your car. And even if it is something that you got to mail, well, guess what? You can work with us, and we'll make sure that you don't have to worry about, like, you can. We'll have an extra charge on there to where you we'll take care of the shipping, right? You can take care of making sure that it we'll take care of the shipping. You just show up at a FedEx or something like that. We'll tell you how to package it, all that stuff, and you can send whatever you need to send to somebody, and we'll make sure that it's known. Hey, yeah, pay them a little extra for what they're doing, because when you get it, they're gonna already have something that's growing that they put work into. Like, it don't take as much. The problem is once again, you got works without faith. We say it, and then everybody gives a certain amount, and then everybody kind of quits. Like, oh, well, I didn't see, and I didn't do. It's like, go all the way through with this stuff. Go all the way to new wineskin. Stop talking old wineskin and trying to put new wine in it, and you keep trying to figure out why it burst apart. New wineskin, new wine, new wineskin, new wine, new mentality, new position, new education, new way of looking at money. Money's not even real. Money only shows up because of flow in your life. Money's not real. There's no gold or silver to back it up. Talking about, I won't invest in crypto, or I won't invest. If you got a credit card, you invested in crypto. All they had to do was tell you, call it something different, and you think it's something completely different. Right? Peep game. Have you ever wrote out a check to somebody? Have you ever wrote out a check to somebody? We're going to get ready to take our leave, right? I just need you to catch this, right? I need you to catch this. See, the devil should be in the details, but you don't have the detail. Have you ever wrote out a check? Checks are like ancient now, right? Nobody uses them anymore. But for those of you who know what a check is, some of the youth are like looking through their dictionaries, like, right? But for the rest of us who might have attempted to write a check at some point, right? If you've written a check, did you ever see any money transfer hands? See, they got you thinking this stuff is real. If you ever wrote out a check, you said the number Most High come through and all this stuff. Have you ever, when you wrote out a check, did you ever see cash transfer hands when you wrote a check to somebody? Of course you didn't, because you didn't need cash to be able to make sure you wrote out a check. It was a contract, and somebody wanted to know if you had something to back up the contract. And so somebody said, well, we agree that there's these things called numbers. So if there's some numbers in your account, I guess you have the right to be able to write out to write out this contract, to write out this note, right? To have a bill of exchange, to use this as a negotiable instrument. That's all you were doing. Sovereignty is spirituality. You have a belief system set up, and you think that your belief system is more real. When you see the slave owner George Washington, or the slave owner Thomas Jefferson, or the slave owner Abraham Lincoln, or the slave owner Andrew Jackson, or the slave owner Ulysses S. Grant, or the slave owner Benjamin Franklin, I know I forgot one of them in there. When you see them on the money, right, you see that on there, and you think that that's a negotiable instrument because you have this thing called currency. Currency is literally defined as something that you agree upon. It's not currency. It doesn't flow if we don't agree. The only reason why you think that cryptocurrency, which is decentralized, is different than fiat cash, which is centralized, is because you agree to it. That's why cryptocurrency went up. That's it. It's that simple. Whatever you decide. That's why when you went through 2020 and 2021 and people were buying up pallets of toilet tissue, you know why they did that? Not all of them were doing it to save it, but they did that because they wanted to make sure that they cornered the market, so that when you can get in somewhere else, somebody would be at the store outside and be like, hey, they won't let you get toilet tissue in there, but you can buy it from me. It became your currency. There were people out there that say, yo, I'll do thus and such for you if you give me 2 packs of toilet tissue. Like, that was real. Y'all forgot? That's how fast something becomes currency. That's how fast it can flow. You think this is going to be a long thing. This might happen tomorrow that we're ready to move. It might happen 2 days from now. Oh, it might happen 2 years. Hopefully not. Right? I'm even hesitant to speak it, but I'm just saying this thing could happen tomorrow. Where it's like, yo, y'all ready? Who ready to come out here and camp and make sure that we protect this land while we bring some people out here to make sure we start sowing some seed? You see what I'm saying? But it takes works and faith. Faith without works is dead. Works without faith is dead. You see what I'm saying? Like it's currency. Currency. Watch this. If there's a dam somewhere around, wherever you are, all it would take for you to have a whole nother way of looking at that earth, that part of the earth, that's where you are, that Asase, all it would take is the dam to break. That quickly, you would have a different flow, wouldn't you? That quickly, you would be running for your life. That quickly, hopefully, you got all your affairs in order. Right? Right? That quickly, everything could change. Right? That quickly. That quickly, you could be the greatest preacher to ever live to being the preacher that's behind bars. Ask me how I know. Now, I was never the greatest preacher to ever live. I'm going to become something close to it at some point because I'm a preacher's word what other people don't preach. But there are a bunch of people that should be greater than I, but they won't flow. No spiritual flow. No currency. Some of these people, if they would just start, like, think about how many churches have more land than you and I could do anything with. If they would just start letting that flow to the people, how much much more quickly would people say, I don't need to be part of the United States corporation? Oh, currency is food now. Currency is food now. There's some people out there in sexual relationships because they get fed. Sorry to say that, it shouldn't be. I'm just telling you. I've been homeless on the street and watched brothers who literally are sitting up there in the shelter and stuff like that and dealing with stuff. But when it gets cold outside and they want a place to raise their head, they'll tell you that they'll all of a sudden become people who listen to women so that they can sleep, have somewhere to sleep. Real talk. And then also when it becomes springtime and summertime, you see them. It used to be a running joke for us. You see them same brothers out there, right out there again, homeless with us again. But they don't want to be outside during the cold. You ain't allowed to be in the shelter all day, every day, even when they act like you can. They'll let you be out there cold, freezing. So a lot of them said, hey, I'd rather make sure that I am loving and nurturing. They know how to do it. They just don't feel like doing it. But they'll do it for a season. Then all of a sudden, when they finish getting warm, fed and everything, they right back out there. A lot of churches are government owned. Yep, 501c3. That's why we stay away from 501c3. Not going to do it. Not ever. Right? Now, I know there are 501c things that are not as government regulated, and I'm looking at them because it would be really easy to have already gotten the land if I could be one of them, to be honest with you, because there are a lot of people that would have already given to us if I just was. But that means we got to be owned. And that means I can't really give the land to our children's children. We could have probably already gotten stuff if I just said, yeah, we'll just do 501c3. But what does that matter then if the government says, oh, I saw you on YouTube and we don't like the fact that you won't just marry anybody with anybody, so therefore we're going to take your land away. Like, they can do that. You know, that's how churches get sued and stuff. A lot of y'all don't even have bylaws or things that you teach so much. Like, why do we have a lot of this stuff recorded? Why do we have a whole thing? Even if it's not written out in the booklet, we're working on it. But even if it's not written out in the booklet yet, why can you go online somewhere and see something saying, having been led as we believe? Because in those little red hymnals, they call something called having been led as we believe. Those of you who came from that group, if you know what I'm talking about, the old school red Baptist hymnals, right, that they use at other churches besides just Baptist. And it has a whole thing on there where you were supposed to say that together in declaration, that you say it together lawfully. What you're saying is, this is what our standard. Anybody who disagrees with this standard, you can't be part of or you have every right to not agree with it, but we don't have to necessarily uphold what it is you're saying. That's why we have a whole spot. It's law. We have a whole thing of teachings, literally just having been led as we believe. A lot of people think we did that randomly. Right? We didn't do that randomly. We considered the cost. We know what it is. I've seen what it is to have brothers and sisters out there that lose assemblies that they've worked on building, or not even assemblies, things that they've gathered in their whole lives, their families have gathered and everything, because all it takes is one person who doesn't like something you're doing, and they try to find a finesse in there. That's why everything we do is via donation. We have an EIN and everything, but everything we do is via donation. Why is everything via donation? Because you don't have to give if you don't want to. A lot of people be asking for the stuff. You don't have to give what you don't want to. Now, if there's things that we know we've done wrong, I don't mind, for time to time. But SOC will never even really give we don't, SOC, there's donations. You can't really give a refund. So we might give an offering possibly, or I might just go in my pocket and be like, okay, you don't like this. Here you go, boom, boom, boom. But we don't have anything outside of donations. You know why? Once again, because it's a detail. That one little detail. See, the devil's in the details. If you don't make sure that you say that this is not owned by me and owned by anybody, nobody pays for any service that we give. There are suggested donations that we say, if you don't give this donation, we don't have the ability to help you do such and such. You got to set up your business correctly, your family correctly. This is something, if it's going to be generational wealth, the smallest detail can be the end of something that's supposed to be for your grandchildren. This is why we teach the way we teach. If somebody is willing to give a tithe, offering, donation, whatever towards us, the least I can do is say, this is how you can make money off of 10% of what you make for yourself. If you can give 10% to your church, why don't they teach you how to make sure that you can use 10% to invest into something greater than what you're doing right now? The devil's in the details. So that being said, I told you guys I will. And we put up pictures from yesterday's live on Patreon as well. We'll do the same thing today because there's some things I can't save. But I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I know we went a little longer today. We went a little shorter yesterday. Tomorrow we will go shorter because we're going to have our Shabbat Shalom service on the podcast. Those of you who want more information, if you're on YouTube, please feel free to check us out on there and look at the description box, and we'll try to get back to you if you want to go ahead and fill out the form so we can get your information. If you want to text us, email us, etc., feel free to. I apologize for the last couple of nights of classes. I've been dealing basically with just personal stuff. I tried to make sure you guys knew in advance what was going on, but it's just is what it is at this moment. And we also have some things going on with our community as far as people who passed away or people whose parents are passing, things like that. So just keep each other lifted in prayer. I'm not even sure how much of you guys know publicly or not. I've been trying to make sure that before I tell you guys certain things, as always, I try to make sure that the people are okay with it. But yeah, I do apologize. I wasn't able to make it on the live session at all last night. Just keep us in prayer if you don't mind, as we will, you as well. And we thank you guys so much. I know I didn't even have time to get to you guys about the meetup. So for right now, we'll just do it like this. We know for sure tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time. Those of you who are in Florida, please look for the next couple of days for you to be able to get the link for us to have a Zoom meeting at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time. That'll be the only SOC meeting kind of going on today, just for those, or tomorrow, just for those in Florida. Next week, we will have an SOC meeting for everybody at 11 a.m. And we'll also do a meeting for probably at like around 12:30 and like even 2 o'clock for people of other groups. So I'm not 100% sure which groups are going to go where. I do know that at 12:30 on February the 25th, we will have a Zoom meeting again for those who are in Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, did I say already? Missouri, and the Dakotas. I think I got everybody in that area. So we'll have that, and you'll get information for that as we go closer and closer to. Always feel free to also reach out to Minister Tamara as well. Tamara _Yah9. I believe it's TAMARA _YAH9. Did I say that correctly? I think I did. But you can make sure that you contact her through there, or if you have her email, her number, etc. If there's certain things you need as far as guidance and some of those things. Those who are in Florida, I will send out something for Bible study. I'll try to do it basically when I send you guys the Zoom link. So at least you guys can kind of look at it. We can have some discussion. These things are leading up to us having more meetups and things like that. We'll probably do another Zoom meeting for people in Georgia very soon as well, somewhere in there too. Next week, more than likely. So I'll give you guys more information on what's going on. But thank you guys for being on. Appreciate you. Just keep us in prayer. Recordings are coming for classes, and we'll make it up to you guys. Also, if you took Sovereignty 1 and we haven't had our one-on-one discussion, we need to try and do that ASAP. And you guys tell me what day or and time works for you so we can go over your DS11 forms. Other than that, we thank you guys. We appreciate you. We're looking at having some meetups very soon. Not sure when, but my family's going to start being on the road sometime soon. Oh, wow. Thank you. That was awesome. I've never seen that one before. So my family going to be on the road pretty soon again. I don't know to the same extent we were last year, but we'll at least start moving around some. So some meetups, including us being there, will be there. But also we're going to try and get some meetups, even if we're not there, for you guys to be able to come together and show each other love and be able to help each other. So we appreciate you. We honor you. We thank you so much. Remember to study this word so you can be hearers and doers of it simultaneously. We don't want you to just be one without the other. And we thank you so much for your time. Thank you to those who are on YouTube. And, don't forget your affirmations, Romans 8:1, Romans 8:11, Romans 8:18, Romans 8:19, Romans 8:28, and a bonus, Romans chapter 8, verse 37. And we thank you for that. To everybody else who's going to be on TikTok with us today. And thank you guys so much. Remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made in you, which is all of us working together will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. Thank you so much. For everybody else who's here on